I mean, really? Astrobot? Game of the year? Really? Whatever, man. Have you ever wondered who's this big head Thanos? Who the hell is this? And who the hell is that? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay the Storyteller and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today we'll be looking at Chapter 1, Black Wind, Red Fire. We'll talk about the main characters in the game and how they were related to the original Journey to the West. Hopefully it can help you guys understand the story of the game a little bit better. Well, without further ado, let's begin. At the early stage of the journey, Wukong and the Tang monk arrived at the Guanyin Temple. But there was no one in the main hall to check them in. Wukong rang the bell and got the monk's attention. Well, we did the same thing in the game, speaking of legacy. Then the abbot of the temple, Elder Jingchi, welcomed them. The name sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yup, this guy. Jingchi offered them tea, using luxurious tea sets. Then he asked the Tang monk if he carried any treasure with him on the way, since he came from the great prosperous Tang Empire. Not that I want it, but I just love to see all different kinds of precious items. Knowing Jingchi was greedy, so the Tang monk was like, "Nah man, I'm broke." Wukong heard the conversation. He jumped out. He was like, "Master, we have this kasaya." Jingchi was like, "Bro, kasaya? I have a whole collection of kasayas." Then he showed them his collection. Well, he did have a lot of kasayas in his collection. Of course, the kasaya of every spark alone beats the whole Jingchi's collection. It was a gift from Bodhisattva Guanyin, had a variety of gems on it and blessing of the Buddha. Kasaya also had the function of repelling all evils. The dream kasaya for all monks. Jingchi begged to borrow the kasaya for the night so that he could take a closer look at it. As you can imagine, his greed got the best of him. The kasaya was so precious that he just wanted to take it, as shown in the ending animation. One of his disciples, Guangzhi, yup, our good friend. We'll talk about how he ended up like this in a bit. Anyway, Guangzhi suggested to kill them and just take the kasaya. Taken over by his greed, Jingchi quickly agreed to the plan. He said, "We work in the dark to serve the light. We are assassins." Of course, Wukong noticed the movements of the monks. He transformed into a little monk and was like, "What's up, brothers? What you doing?" The monks replied, "Ain't got time to talk. We gotta prepare this firewood to burn the travelers." Wukong was like, "Burning who? Me and my master?" Well, have it your way then. He visited the Virapaksa, one of the four heavenly kings, and borrowed his vessel, the fireproof mantle. He used the mantle to protect Tang monk, and then he cast a wind spell to increase the fire, and just sat back to watch the temple burn. During the fire, the Black Wind King, a black bear guy, stole the kasaya during the chaos. By the way, in the novel, he was gonna rescue Jingchi as he noticed the fire because they were friends, but instead he stole the kasaya. Best friend ever. The next day, the monks were scared shitless when they saw Wukong and Tang monk, as they thought they were ghosts coming back for revenge. Wukong was like, "We're not ghosts. You don't know who you were messing with." Of course, the monks begged for mercy. "Please, it wasn't us, it was the master's idea."
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Looks familiar, doesn't it? The details in this game, man. By the way, in the novel, he killed himself bumping his head to the wall, which is why he used his head to attack. Even though Jingchi was dead, they still needed to find the kasaya. The monks told Wukong there was a Yao Guai on the Black Wind Mountain, just right around the corner. So Wukong said to the monks, "Alright, I'll pay him a visit, and you doofus take good care of my master. Otherwise, you know what's gonna happen." Wukong arrived at the mountain and confronted the Black Bear Guai. By the way, Wukong made fun of him because the guy's face was dark. Well, Wukong was lucky he was created in Ming Dynasty. Otherwise, he'd be banned for being racist. The bear talked back. You are Bima Wen, the horse boy. Ha 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 ha. Bima Wen is like Wukong's N-word, so he got pissed. But as we can see from the game, the black bear guy was very slippery because of his wind spells, and he escaped. So Wukong returned empty-handed. But he said to Tang Monk, "Don't worry, master. Now I know that Jing Chi and the guy were friends. I have a goddamn plan." Well, what is it, Dutch? Wukong's plan was simple. He transformed as Jing Chi and sneaked in and tried to steal back the Kasaya, but his cover was blown for obvious reason. Yep, he never was Oscar material, and the black bear vanished again. Wukong got back and said to Tang Monk, "Master, why are you still praying to her? We are in her temple and clearly she knows everything going on here, yet she doesn't do anything about it. Whatever, I'll go confront her now." Wukong told Bodhisattva Guanyin about their struggle, and Guanyin was like, "Don't worry, Wukong, I'll come with you." Back to the mountain, Wukong killed the white-clad noble, a white snake guy, with one shot. Not the one we fought in the game though. There are two different Yao Guais which I'll talk about later. After killing the snake guy, Wukong asked Guanyin to play along his plan and transform into the Yao Guai. Guanyin agreed, which really started her career of cosplaying. But you know, story for another time. Long story short, Wukong disguised as a pill and got swallowed by the black bear guy. Well, that doesn't sound very healthy. Wukong went crazy in his stomach. Damn, I can't even imagine what it feels like. Then, Guanyin put a band on his head, exactly like the one Wukong got. Except Wukong's band was called the tightening band, and the black bear guy's band was called the binding band. But they both worked the same. They will cause insufferable pain upon triggering, you know, as a way to manipulate them. Wukong was like, "Oh, hey, nice band." Anyway, Guanyin asked Wukong to spare the guy's life, as she happened to be in need of a guard in her mountain. And that is why Black Bear Guai was kneeling before Bodhisattva Guanyin in the final animation, with a band on his head. And that is what happened here at the Guanyin Temple in the journey. And here we go. Chapter 1, Black Cloud, Red Fire. The first character we meet is the Keeper of the Black Wind Mountain. Keepers are usually the local Yao Guais selected by the Celestial Court to nurture the soil and look after all livings in the region. They were pretty much the lowest rank of the celestial gods. As the job description suggests, a keeper is a very reliable source of information, and Wukong got their help for many times in the journey. Reliable little fellas. But this one was special because he taught us a very important spell, you know, the Immobilize spell. The spell that saved my ass for many times in the game. But why though? Why did this keeper teach us the spells? Well, actually, it wasn't him that taught us the spells. In his portrait, we can learn that a mysterious Taoist offered him valuable pills and herbs in exchange for a favor from him to teach us the life-saving spells. Then the mysterious Taoist vanished, leaving only a Bodhi tree leaf floating in the air. Well, no idea who that was. If you watched my last episode, the answer is obvious. It was Master Bodhi, Sun Wukong's first master, who gave him the name Sun Wukong and taught him all his spells. Obviously, Master Bodhi was still concerned about Wukong even though he kicked him out. But for some reason, he could not show himself, so he entrusted the keeper to teach us the spells. See, I told you there was something more to it in the last episode. But unfortunately, we still don't know Master Bodhi's story, and it wasn't written in the book either. So take your guesses, guys. And please allow me to introduce the word master in Chinese, as it's a very meaningful word. The word is 师傅. Shi means the teacher, and Fu means the father. There's an old saying in China, 一日为师, 终身为父. Once the teacher, and always the father, which means students should respect their teachers as if they are own fathers. Likewise, teachers treat their students as if their own children. That's just how much we respect our teachers in Chinese culture. Clearly, Master Bodhi still cared that bond, and he helped us in secret. Love you, Shifu. As for the bull guard, well, he was just a loyal guard defending the mountain. Not much to talk about. As we progressed in the game, we encountered the flame wolf, Guangzhi, my man who saved me so many times in the game. Now that we know he was Jing Chi's disciple and suggested to kill Tang Monk and Sun Wukong. So how did he end up like this? Well, long story short, he was always a Yao Guai, a little wolf guai who wanted to be human. He begged his master, Lin Xuzi, to allow him to live among the humans, to truly learn the ways of human. In the end, he was sent to Guanyin Temple and learned from Jingchi. He never thought that his suggestion would be the end of his master at the temple. Even though he survived the fire, he couldn't live with his guilt. So he returned to the mountain ever since. He even created his Fireblade spell because of the haunting memory of the fire. Until we came and saved him from his guilty conscience. You're welcome, bro. I put your power to good use. And we rang the bell like Wukong. Such legacy. Then we met this big head. When the Black Winged Guai returned to the mountain, he tried to revive Elder Jingchi with a spell he learned from Bodhisattva Guanyin. But obviously something went wrong. Jingchi's soul wasn't complete when he was resurrected. A part of his soul was scattered and had been wandering around in the mountain ever since. May his soul rest in peace. In pieces. Here we are, the notorious Guanyin Temple. Here we will encounter the Wolf King, Lin Xuzi. Now back to the journey. The Black Bear Guai had two friends, Lin Xuzi and the White-clad Noble, as the commanders of the Snake and Wolf Guais. But Lin Xuzi and the White-clad Noble were both killed by Sun Wukong. In the game, we can learn that the Black Bear Guai returned to the mountain and he tried to rebuild his army. Of course, bring back his friends. He successfully revived Lin Xuzi with the sacrifice of the lives of the voluntary Wolf Guais. Well, that's not surprising. Everything has a price, you know. But Lin Xuzi just couldn't live with himself, knowing that his resurrection was based on the sacrifices made by his wolf guys. Until one day he decided to leave the mountain and never return. As we can learn from the game, he killed himself. But the Black Bear Guai didn't know this. He thought that Lin Xuzi was just an old ungrateful bastard. As it happened to be, the Black Bear Guai took in a new wolf pack fleeing from the kingdom of Shituo. By the way, the kingdom of Shituo was full of Yao Guais, but destroyed by Sun Wukong. A really interesting chapter, but again, a story for another time. Anyway, the Black Bear Guai appointed a Grey Wolf from the new pack as the new master of the Wolf Guais and gave him the name Lin Xuzi. And that's who we fought in the game, the new Lin Xuzi. Unlike the old one, the new Lin Xuzi was cruel and cared only about strength. He even tried to kill all the wolf guys left by the old Lin Xuzi. A well-deserved death, if you ask me. Then we meet this strange old man with a giant gourd on his back. His name is Yuan Shoucheng, the fortune teller. His story is very long and it involved the cause of the journey to the west. We'll talk more about him in the future chapters. After that, the poisonous snake, Guangmou, the cunning one. He was also a disciple of Elder Jingchi, just like Guangzhi, but they were completely different. In the journey, he was the one who came up with the idea to burn the Tang Monk and Sun Wukong because he knew that Sun Wukong was a tough character to deal with. And in the game science elaborated a little bit. Guangmou was sent to the Guanyin Temple by his master after Guangzhi, as he tried to win the favor of the Black Bear Guai. But no matter how hard he tried, Elder Jingchi always favored Guangzhi. So gradually, hatred and anger grew in him, and he saw Sun Wukong as a chance to get his revenge for the injustice he suffered. Slaying with the borrowed blade, as we say in Chinese. Then we meet your alcoholic dad, the Shen Monkey. He's one of the 12 zodiac deities. We'll talk about them all together later in chapter 3. Now just take him as the alcoholic monkey who helped us. Then we meet this guy, the White-clad Noble. Now that we know the old White-clad Noble was killed by Sun Wukong with one shot in the journey, so who the hell is this? Well, in his words, he was only here because of his brother's order. He gave us the hint to find the 3 bells, which we know that unlocks the secret map of this chapter. The answer is quite clear. This is Chang Hao, one of the main mountain brothers, the White Snake, sent here by Erlang, the secret divinity, to wait for the destined one to come and to test his strength, then guide him. Well, appreciate the concern, but we really could have skipped the test part. With his guidance, we entered the ancient Guanyin Temple, Elder Jingchi's obsession. Then we faced Elder Jingchi, or whatever's left from him. And now we pretty much know about his story, a well-respected monk consumed by his greed and vanity, and eventually became the monster he was. Unlike Lin Xuzi, he took his disciples' sacrifices for granted. As you can see, he just took lives to heal himself. What a greedy monster. By the way, when he was alive, he learned a few spells from the Black Bear Guai. And that's why he could live that long as a mortal. In the end, he realized he was wrong. But too late to repent now, sir. And then it gets tricky here. After beating Elder Jinchi, we were able to get the fireproof mantle, which belonged to Virapaksa, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Why was it here? It's safe to say that Erlang put it here for us to find, because he was the only one who could pull this off, as the 4 heavenly kings served under him. Now that we proved our strength, we can take it and face the final challenge, the Black Bear Guai, or as he called himself, the Black Wing King. After defeating his human form, he did what he did best, running away. Well, he was called the Black Wing for a reason. Then the keeper jumped out and took all the credit to teach us the spell Cloud Step. Nice try, old man. But we already know that it was our Shifu, Master Bodhi. Once again, thank you, Shifu. Finally, let's talk about this flying bear, the Black Bear Guai. Now that we know his story in the journey, as he ended up serving Bodhisattva Guanyin, so why was he here at the Guanyin temple again and even trying to rebuild his army? Well, in his portrait, he came back to the mountain by the order of Guanyin to take a part in the Celestial Court's plan and guard Wukong's relic. Black Bear didn't want to do it, but just like he said, he was just a pawn of the court. At this point, we can roughly guess that the court's plan was to make sure the Destined One to collect all the relics, inherit Wukong's power, and then put on the band again. And of course, become another pawn of the court. So our goal is to inherit Wukong's power, but not to wear the band again. But it was only possible with Erlang's help, which we'll elaborate once we progress in the game. Poor little bear. Another pawn sacrificed by the noble Celestial Court. It was weird though. He couldn't escape after his defeat. Maybe the relic sensed us, the Destined One, and resisted. Or Guanyin was watching the whole time and she stopped the Black Bear to make sure everything goes as planned. Speaking of the black myth, there's no telling how dark things could be. Then we got his relic, one of Wukong's 6 senses, the eyes. Which brings us to the end of the chapter. Enjoying the beautiful animation, guys.
百卷情，千般缘，色与空，弹指间。轮回路，有万次劫，求不得，闭上眼，一生功名忙如烟，浮沉落花断不绝。涅槃究竟寻常事，有情处不远。口中念，心中言，现世报，却方便。修行路，无名尽，幡动时，莫等闲。一生功名情如烟，最苦人物在少年。最是因祸情失眠，谈真挚，看见
Master, it still puzzles me. A monk's lust for gold should be quelled. Why does Elder Jinche still cling to that one Kasaya?
Bereft of that Kasaya, how shall they show the world their ties are cut and their lust is quelled?
Well, Bodhisattva Guan Yin Shuo was right. You don't need a Kasaya to prove that you're a faithful monk, just like you don't need a trophy to prove you're the game of the year, right? But anyway, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this episode. If you like this video, please subscribe. It will mean a lot to me. Thank you. 欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Jay the Storyteller and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today we'll be focusing on chapter 2, Yellow Sand, Desolate Dusk. Like always, we'll go through the story and the key characters and I'll talk about how they were related in the original Journey to the West. Hopefully it can help you guys understand the story a little bit better. For the record, this chapter is rather depressing and full of tragedies, so it may not be as funny as the previous ones, but I'll try my best. Well, without further ado, let's begin. The Yellow Wing Ridge used to be a beautiful place, but it was also dangerous because there were a lot of Yaoguais in it. But of course, the gang wasn't afraid, so they just went straight in. Clearly, something was going to happen. They ran into a tiger, which turned out to be a Yaoguai. As you can guess, the Tiger Vanguard. Not this one though, this one, the Tiger Father. We'll talk about that in a bit. Anyway, the Tiger Vanguard peeled off its own skin and cast a spell that tricked Wukong and Bajie. Damn, I wonder how many skins he got. He must be rich to buy this many skins. After tricking Wukong and Bajie, of course, he just grabbed the Tang Monk back to the cave. In the cave, the Tang Monk met the master, the Yellow Wing Guai, or as he called himself in the game, the Yellow Wing Sage. Unsurprisingly, another fight for Wukong, but the Yellow Wing was quite noob and he couldn't match Wukong's power. But he had a very powerful spell, the Samadhi Wind. As I mentioned in my first video, Wukong's body was so strong that the rock-solid spell we used in the game was only his permanent passive. His only weakness was his eyes, and the Samadhi Wind, along with the dusts, caused a great deal of damage to his eyes and he went blind. Listen to your heart. Fortunately, Bajie was around. He carried Wukong and they found the cabin in the woods to rest in. There were countless monsters and demons. Oh, sorry, wrong movie. The owner of the cabin, an old lady, happened to have the medicine to cure his eyes. How convenient was that? Of course, it wasn't just coincidence. The next day they woke up and the cabin was gone. Then they realized it was the celestial gods who helped them and healed Wukong's eyes. Time for the comeback, and this time Wukong took it very seriously. The Tiger Vanguard couldn't last 3 rounds this time. He tried to run away, but got intercepted by Bajie, and Bajie finished him, the kill-stealing pig. Then Wukong transformed into a butterfly. In the novel, it was a mosquito, but it doesn't matter. He flew into the cave and told Tang Monk to relax. Then he became a bug, literally, to see if he can get useful information. Well, it was his lucky day, as the minions asked the Yellow Wing, "My king, what should we do if Sun Wukong bring help?" Yellow Wing was like, "Don't worry, as long as he doesn't bring Bodhisattva Lingji, we're good, because no one else can deal with my Samadhi Wind." Yeah, him. Of course, Wukong got Lingji's help and subdued the Yellow Wing Guai. You know, a yellow rat. Then Lingji grabbed him, and the gang continued their journey. Pretty simple, huh? Well, it wasn't that simple in the game. Clearly, there were a lot of things happened here at the Yellow Wing Ridge, apart from the novel. It all began in the Kingdom of Sahali. Originally, it was called the Kingdom of Flowing Sand. It was located at the end of the West Sea. where the sun sets. You know, the earth was flat, so the sun had to rest somewhere. And it just sinks into the wet sea. The seawater would boil, making huge noises that could kill the children in the city. And there wasn't much to do about it, as it was a natural disaster. So the kingdom of the flowing sand had no choice but to keep on suffering. Until one day, the Buddha gave them a drum that could neutralize the noise and save the children. As the result, the kingdom began worshipping the Buddha. They built countless temples, pagodas, and even gold statues of the Buddha. And here it comes, the classic conflict between the theocracy and the royalty. The king didn't like the fact that his people worshipped the Buddha over him. Classic. So he decided to end the worship of the Buddha. You know, he ordered to break all the temples and statues of the Buddha. And he even ordered to change the name of the kingdom. And that's why it was called the Kingdom of Sahali. Right after his action, a giant beetle suddenly started appearing in the kingdom when the drum was played. The beetle had unbreakable armor and no mortals could harm him, and the kingdom called it the disaster of Fuba. Strange, huh? A giant beetle with a Buddha face on its back just appeared right after the king decided to end Buddhism in his kingdom. Then our good buddy, Yellow Wing, came in and saved the day. Notice that this happened before the journey. The Yellow Wing Guai was a rat who lived in Mount Lingshan, who gained Dharma and became a Yao Guai. He stole the lamp oil from the Buddha's temple and escaped. So honestly, he isn't really a bad Yao Guai, he just lacked teaching. Because clearly he was fighting for the people here, as Fuban really wasn't his concern. He helped because he just couldn't watch the people suffer. Compassionate he was.
On the folks' behalf, I thank you.
So he really wasn't evil, and even in the journey, he wasn't evil either. As I mentioned before, it was his henchman, the tiger vanguard, who grabbed Tang Monk. The tiger suggested to eat Tang Monk because rumors said that Tang Monk's meat can grant immortality. But the Yellow Wing didn't agree because he didn't want any trouble. And plus, he was afraid of Sun Wukong, you know, as the famous great sage equal to heaven. Many Yao Guais feared him, so the Yellow Wing only wanted to return Tang Monk and not to mess with Sun Wukong. But the tiger vanguard insisted. He was like, "Don't worry, my king, I got this. Let me go fetch the monkey's head for ya." You know the rest. He was killed by Bajie in the end. And that was why the Yellow Wing Guai fought Wukong in the journey. Not because of his greed, but because he was furious and wanted to avenge for his henchmen. So he was rather a compassionate character and loyal to his friends. So what the hell happened to make him the villain he was? Well, let's find out. After the Yellow Wing ended the disaster of Fuba, the king was so grateful that he asked Yellow Wing to stay in the kingdom and entitled him as the royal sage. Back then, Yellow Wing was just a young Yao Guai, and he wanted all Yao Guais to be able to live in dignity. As the royal sage, he convinced the king to issue the Rodent Reverence Edict and allowed Yao Guais to live in the city. Many people were against the edict, including the first and third prince, as they didn't want to live with the Yao Guais under the same roof. That's so fucking racist. But the king insisted to enforce the edict, and guess what happened? Yep, the whole kingdom just turned into rat guais, including the royal family. As I mentioned, the first prince was totally against the Rodent Reverence Edict. He even had a huge fight with his father. He always thought that the royal sage had evil schemes, and the king decided to imprison him. One day his cell wasn't locked, so he got out and he saw rat guais everywhere. He was worried about his father, so he rushed into his father's palace. Then he saw a rat guai sitting in his father's throne and wearing his father's clothes. He tried to kill the rat guai, but he failed. And the rat guai was speaking in his father's voice. And he looked in the mirror. All he could see was an enormous rat guai. As the best fighter of the kingdom, he became the strongest rat. So the first prince just lost his mind and disappeared from them. Next thing we know, he was crazy and he ate his father alive. What a tragedy. Poor king and the poor second prince. You know, the first prince was the best fighter of the kingdom, and the third prince was extremely smart and knowledgeable. He was nothing special and was least favored by the king. Yet here he was, always by his father's side, protecting his father till his end. Another tragedy. As for the third prince, he was also against the Rodent Reverence Edict, and he left the kingdom and somehow ended up in the prison in chapter 3, and we'll continue his story in the next episode. After the whole kingdom turned into rat guais, the Yellow Wing blamed himself As he said, it was a disaster he brought upon them, and he left the kingdom in frustration. But the Redgrass in the kingdom had nowhere to go, so they chose to follow the Yellow Wing as their master and settled in the Yellow Wing Ridge. And that's why there were Redgrass everywhere. Poor souls that used to be humans. Screw the evil curse, man. When the Yellow Wing Guai arrived at the Yellow Wing Ridge, there was a giant stone guai with Buddha face on its back, rampaging and slaughtering the local stone guais. Yeah, the Shigandam! Nah, it's actually pronounced as Shigandang. What a pity. The name looked a lot more fun to pronounce. So who is this Shigandang character? And why were there Buddha faces on its back? And why was he fighting with the local stone guys? Shouldn't they be friends? Well, let's start from the beginning. There were two mountain deities here in the Yellowwing Ridge. You know, the mother of stones and father of stones. They even had a child, the son of stones. Jeez. I wonder how they reproduced. Nah, I was just kidding. They weren't called the father and mother of stones at first. Back then, they were just normal stone guys, selected by the court to be the mountain deities. One day, some strange Buddha heads appeared in the ridge. Something like this. The Buddha heads were nothing but a danger to the local creatures, as they would jump on the animals and devour them. One day, a brave stone guy decided to destroy the heads, and he did. But even after it got crushed, the Buddha heads were still alive, and they emerged with the stone guy and turned into stone Buddha heads. As you can imagine, the poor stone guy was twisted by the head and eventually turned into the destructive monster, Shigandang. As facing such a great threat, the other stone guys united, led by the two mountain deities, and they pressed on the final attack. As they were about to lose, the Yellowwing guy arrived and saved the day. By the way, the Yellowwing joined with Fury because he was familiar with those Buddha heads, just like the one on the giant beetle, Fubai. It seems like the Buddha heads were everywhere, searching oil. Sorry, I mean taking lives. Anyway, the Yellowwing guai subdued the Shigandang and took out the eyeballs from the Buddha heads, placing them in the mountains as a seal of the giant guai. Then he took the essence of Shigandang and divided it into two, gave them to the two mountain deities. The two gained huge power from the essences and were able to transform into human bodies. And that's how they were able to have a child, and why they were called the mother and father of stones. Since then, the stone guys called the Yellowwing guai the Yellowwing Sage and sworn to follow him. A happy ending, huh? Well, not for this guy, the man in stone. This was the keeper of the Yellowwing Ridge, a backstabbing bastard. As a keeper, he was supposed to associate with the mountain deities to protect the livings in the region, but instead, he chickened out when the stone guys were united against Shigandang, and he also chose to sit down when the Yellowwing guai asked for his help. Naturally, he had no share in the loot, but he envied the essences that the two mountain deities got, as they were able to create new stone guais by their will. What he didn't know was that the creation of the new stone guais would at the cost of their own will, you know, their own energy. See, even your guys had to obey the law of conservation of energy. Yay, physics! Anyway, the keeper of the Yellowwing Ridge tried to plunder the essence from the Mother of Stones. He succeeded, or at least half of it. He took half of her essence, but he also turned into the form that we saw, and was smacked into the ground by the Stone Vanguard, and was stuck in there ever since. After that, all he thought about was to getting the other half, and he tricked us to get it for him. You lying, backstabbing son of a bitch. He deserved every single misery happened to him. And let's not waste any more time on him. As for the Stone Vanguard, it was a creation of Mother of Stones, with most of her power. He stopped the Yellowwing guai as he was gonna visit the Mother of Stones. Then the Yellowwing guai ordered the new Tiger Vanguard to remind him who's the boss. The tiger was like, yo bro, you know we can be the yellow rat, right? So just chill, otherwise it would be ugly for both of us. The next day, the Yellowwing guai had one more Vanguard, whose duty was to guard the seal of Shigandang until we came and released it. Then the Stone Vanguard died serving its duty. Sorry, but I really didn't mean that. Let me avenge you. You shall not pass! Now that we've covered the rats and stones, let's look at the pussies. I mean the tigers. The the elder brother, the little brother, and the father. We know that the father, the old tiger vanguard, was killed in the journey, but it was really his ego that killed him. Not much to talk about. After his death and the yellow-winged guy subdued by Bodhisattva Lingji, his sons, the two young tigers, had a really tough time surviving. Fortunately, their father taught them well, so they made it through. The elder tiger learned his father's ways, uniting the lesser yaoguais, and even offered protection for the people. The villagers worshipped him as the tiger god, and even built a temple for him. So the tiger brothers just lived happily with people's offerings, until the day the yellow-winged guai returned to the yellow-winged ridge. The little brother suggested to take a revenge for his father, because the yellow-winged guai set out and let their father die. And of course, they lost, and the younger tiger was severely wounded. And the elder one had to bend the knees in exchange of his brother's life. After hearing their story, the yellow-winged guai decided to give him the title of his father, the Tiger Vanguard. But after waking up, the younger tiger didn't take the news so well. He was angry that his elder brother just take all the titles and all the credits. He stormed out and severed the bond with his brother, a spoiled, ungrateful brat. As you can imagine, the elder brother hated the yellow-winged so bad. In his perspective, the yellow-winged guai ruined his family twice. But he couldn't match the yellow-winged guai's power, so he unleashed his rage against the rats. A rat a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, boy.
Don't worry, bro. Let's get you out of your misery for good. Then, at the bottom of the well, we will meet the younger tiger, as he now became a mad tiger. After parting ways with his brother, he had been hiding in the well and recovered, and waiting for the opportunity to revenge. And one day, a human climbed down to the well. The mad tiger was curious, so he asked, "Who are you?" The man was a fine swordsman, living in the village. But after the yellow-winged guai returned, his wife and son were harmed by the ever-howling Samadhi wind. His wife died and his son was dying, so he went on searching for a cure for his son. The mad tiger was like, "Well, you're in luck. You are in the presence of the tiger god." Then he claimed the reputation of his brother, the actual tiger god. He said, "Bring me your son and I'll heal him." He used the gore that his brother gave him. The gore had the power of healing, and just by filling it with water. Seeing his son got better instantly after drinking from the gore, the man was beyond happy and agreed to deal with the mad tiger. He would lure the villagers into the well for the mad tiger to eat, in exchange of his son's treatments, and that's why he was called the tiger's acolyte. And of course, the villagers found out the scheme, and the poor kid was beaten to death by the angry villagers. Seeing his son's death, he lost it and slaughtered the whole village. But that doesn't bring his son back. Through the treatments, the mad tiger gradually grew care and trust of the boy. When the boy and the father stopped showing up, he got out of the well to see what happened, and saw the village was ruined and the coffin with the boy inside. He carried the coffin back to his well to honor the memory of his only friend, hoping that one day he'll be strong enough to stop the wind. Another tragedy, a poor boy paid for the mistakes of his father. Then the yellow-robed squire, or as his true identity, Zhu Zizhen, the boar of the Mei Mountain brothers, also sent here by Erlang, with a mission to guide us and test our strength. Not sure about the test part though, more like a pop quiz. Ha, a noob pig. Anyway, he gave us a series of tasks, got us to go from here and there that seemed unrelated to the game, but if we really look into it, we can see that he really was just making us to learn what happened here. See as he sees, and feel as he feels. Then he showed us what happened at the beginning, the story of the forgotten kingdom of flowing sand. And now the story is clear. Bodhisattva Lingji was behind all disasters happened to the kingdom of flowing sand. He sent his mount, Fuba, after the king turned against Buddhism. And by the way, in the journey, many yaoguais were mounts of wands above. But again, story for another time. Anyway, Lingji also turned the whole kingdom into rat guais after the rodent reverence edict. In the portrait, he was also the cause of the incident of Shigandang, a disgusting Buddha. That's why the yellow-winged guai hated him so much. After the journey, Linji took him as his disciple, but he really was just a pawn of the greater plan regarding Wukong's relics. Of course, the Yellow Winged Guy didn't trust the ones above. He made a plan B for himself. He took Linji's head as a vessel to absorb the relic's power. As he said, the one who brought disasters upon others will have disasters brought upon him. If not by me, then someone else. He wanted to have the right to say no in the scheme, but clearly he didn't have enough time. Sorry bro, and I mean it this time. We could have been best buddies. Fuck the hypocrites and their evil schemes. They're just disgusting. Especially Linji, he was literally disgusting. Ew. Then he gave us the second relic, the ears. Let's just get out of this depressing chapter.
Men, beasts, Buddhas, Yaoguais. Each of them bears a distinct root from birth, superior and inferior. None should disturb what's decided. Am I right, Sun Wukong?
Well, the animation was very interesting. The young scholar saved the little fox and then chose to kill it just because of a bad drink he had. So he went from good to evil just because of simple choice. And that's what this chapter was trying to tell us. The choices we make define who we are. A Yaoguai is no longer a Yaoguai if he chose to fight for the people. And the Buddha is no longer a Buddha if he chose to kill the innocent lives. The Yellow Winged Guy chose to fight for the people at the beginning, and that's what made him the hero. But then he just watched when his rats were being eaten by the tiger. Also, he even killed innocent lives himself with the yellowing formation and ever-hollowing samadhi wing. Good or evil, it's all about the choices. Anyway, I'm Jade the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe, it will mean a lot to me. 欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。Have you ever wondered who the hell is this and who the hell is that? Well, you've come to the right place. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jade the Storyteller and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today we'll be focusing on chapter 3, White Snow, Ice Cold. As you can notice, this video is very long because there were a lot of things to talk about in this chapter. Because this chapter is deeply connected to the Journey to the West story. And this episode can really help you understand the story of the game and the Journey to the West itself much better. So please just bear with me and trust me, you won't be disappointed. Well, without further ado, let's begin. One day, the journey gang arrived at a place called the New West. There was a grand temple named the New Thunderclap Temple. Wukong knew this temple was fishy because the name of the Buddha's temple was well known, the Thunderclap Temple of the West. And plus, Wukong had been there already. It sure as hell doesn't look like this. He said, there's nothing to see here, let's just keep going. But Tang Monk disagreed. There's a temple here, Wukong. We monks should at least go in and pay our respect to the Buddhas. Wukong couldn't convince Tang Monk. He knew this was meant to be, so he kept quiet. Unsurprisingly, Tang Monk was excited when he saw the sign. He was like, yo bros, we here. You bad monkey almost fucked up my mission. Wukong said, Master, please be careful. The sign said the New Thunderclap Temple. It seems fishy, there might be yaoguais in it. Tang Monk was like, nonsense. Even though this isn't the Thunderclap Temple, it must be related to the Buddha. Wukong knew this was a trial they had to endure, so he just let it be. Yep, that's what happens when you try to skip the tutorials. Oh my god! Wow! After they entered the temple, Tang Monk thought this was the real deal, so he bowed to every statue faithfully, just like Zhu Bajie said in the game.
Worship my hoof. Visit temples, kneel to figures, tell no black from white. That's my master. I am fed up with all these skin-deep rites.
Bro, you did that too. They even saw Z Buddha in the temple. As you can guess, he was CG'd. Just kidding, I mean he was fake. And Wukong saw through his disguise. It was a Yao Guai, the yellow brow. Yeah, this fatty, probably the most special Yaoguai that the game have ever encountered. I'll talk about why in a bit. The yellow brow tossed a gold symbol and trapped Wukong inside. Yeah, the exact symbol that trapped Bajie in the game. Of course, without Wukong, the rest of the game just got captured by the Yaoguais. The symbol was a very powerful vessel that belonged to the Maitreya. It was completely impenetrable and Wukong couldn't break out from the inside. The celestial gods on duty reported to the Jade Emperor. The Emperor sent the 28 constellation deities to help them. So who are they? Let me explain real quick. The 28 constellation was a term in ancient Chinese astronomy. In ancient times, we divided the night sky into 4 sections. The north, south, east, and west sections. Each section contains 7 major areas, each with countless stars, and that major area is called the constellation. Together, they form the 4 sacred guardians and the 28 constellations. The 4 sacred guardians were Xuan Wu, the combination of turtle and snake of the north. The water element represents long age and steadiness. Zhu Que, the vermilion bird of the south. The fire element represents joy and beauty, as red is the Chinese favorite color that symbols good luck. White tiger of the west, the metal element, represents courage and strength, often seen as the god of war and conquer. Qinglong, the Cyan Long of the east, the wood element, represents majesty, power, and wisdom, and also symbolizes the whole Chinese culture. Not these fishermen we fought in the game though. I'll talk about their stories in future chapters. Anyway, in Chinese mythology, the 4 sacred guardians and the 28 constellations were all celestial gods. And the constellations were all named after an animal. And that's who they are. They are basically stars. Then Kang Jinlong, yeah, this pretty lady. Interesting. Anyway, in the novel, the genders of the constellation deities wasn't stated, so the images of them, are open for discussion. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I like this one way better. Anyway, Kang Jinlong suggested to use his horn to drill into the symbol and get Wukong out of it. After trying so hard, this is hilarious. The horn was finally in the symbol, but there still wasn't any gap for Wukong to get out. So he had to drill a hole on Kang Jinlong's horn and go inside the hole to get out. Damn, that sounds dirty.
Yeah, boy.
Anyway, Wukong got out. The first thing he did was to break the symbol. Of course, it woke up Yellowbrow, and the fight began. Yellowbrow was quite good. He could go back and forth with Wukong, but his minions couldn't match the 28 constellation deities. So Yellowbrow had to use the vessel, the human sea sac, and suck them all in. Yeah, this sac, another powerful vessel that had the power to suck everyone in and melt them. That's just genuinely cheating, man. And here's the reason why I said Yellowbrow was the most special Yaoguai. He didn't come for Tang Monk because he wanted to eat his meat, as most Yaoguais appeared in the journey called Tang Monk because they either wanted to eat him or to fuck him. Because rumor said Tang Monk's essence can grant immortality. But no, Yellowbrow wanted none of that. He wanted to eliminate the journey game so that he could replace them and go to the west to retrieve the scriptures himself to attain Buddhahood. In a word, he wanted to be Tang Monk. That's pretty damn unique. Anyway, Wukong didn't get captured by the sack, and he sneaked back to get everyone out. But just as they were about to leave, they realized they still need to go back to get the luggage. The luggage was important because it had Tang Monk's passport. Yes, passport. We had that back in Tang Dynasty, along with other precious items, such as the Kasaya of Every Spark. And Wukong had to sneak back to fetch the luggage. Of course, that woke up the Yellowbrow. Then they got sucked in again, and only Wukong was able to dodge that. So he went for help because he couldn't deal with the sack himself. Long story short, Wukong got help from the Turtle General and the Snake General, but they too got sucked in the sack. Then Wukong got help from the third prince of Kingdom of Flowing Sand, which we talked about in last episode. He was against his father's Rodent Reverence Edict, so he left the kingdom and became a disciple of Bodhisattva Guoshi Wang to learn the skills of subduing Yaoguais. He brought his 4 captains to help Wukong, and they got sucked in the sack too. Jeez, stop feeding, man. Anyway, Wukong was frustrated because of the failures. Then he saw the Maitreya. Yeah, this little monk in the game. Now, please allow me to take a moment to explain who is Maitreya, because he's a very important character in Buddhism and in this game as well. In Buddhism, the Buddha is the supreme leader of all, but there were 3 of them: the Buddha of the past, the Buddha of the present, and the Buddha of the future. The Buddha of the past made a prophecy that his disciple, Sakyamuni, would be the next Buddha after him, hence the Buddha of the present. And then the Buddha of the present also made a prophecy that his disciple, the Maitreya, is to become the next Buddha. The Buddha of the future. And that's who the Yellowbrow claimed to be.
Kneel before the Buddha of the future.
So it wasn't just a figure of speech, he really was the Buddha of the future. A very high position. He was also called the smiley face Buddha because he was always happy, merciful, and compassionate. He often appeared in children's form. Well, no wonder. Children are the future. A very charming Buddha. Anyway, the Maitreya told Wukong that the Yellowbrow was his altar boy, stole his vessels while he was away, came here to fuck around. Wukong was like, "You are responsible for all this?" Maitreya replied, "Yeah, well, it was partly my fault, but on the other hand, you still have more trials to endure. This was just meant to be. But since I'm here, I'll help you on this one. Here, give me your hand." Then he wrote down a character on Wukong's hand with his saliva. Ew! Nah, he was a Buddha, his saliva was magical and precious. But still though, ew. In the game, he helped us, the destined ones, the exact same way, but with watermelon juice. Hey, where's my Buddha's saliva? That's a lot of money, man. Anyway, Wukong used the spellbinder and successfully lured the yellow bro out into the watermelon field as they planned. Their plan was to trick the yellow bro to eat the watermelon that Wukong transformed into. Obviously, the plan worked, and Wukong was fucking shit up in his stomach. Then Maitreya showed himself, so yellow bro just begged his master for mercy. So Maitreya just asked Wukong to spare yellow bro's life. He took back his vessels so that the gang can be on their way. And that's the story of the New West in the journey. And now back to the game, Chapter 3, White Snow, Ice Cold. The first boss we've met was the Macaque Chief. He is a monkey from Mount Huaguo and was a chief serving the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. But after Sun Wukong died, the monkeys on Mount Huaguo don't end up well, as Sun Wukong had a lot of enemies. The Macaque Chief was one of them. He fled from home and endured a lot of sufferings until he met Yellow Brow. Yellow Brow offered to help to remove the evil cursed wings on his back. Then he said, the reason of your sufferings was because you lacked power, and I can help you to seek power. So the chief looked back to his sufferings, chose to bend the knees, shedding tears. And he did get powerful with the help of the human sea sack. I believe the sack was enhanced by the power of Sun Wukong's relic, as it didn't have this function back in the journey. And also, I believe the function of brainwashing. This is really sad. We killed the Macaque Chief as we were literally family. This is fucked up. Anyway, let's move on. Then we meet the Keeper of the New West, an ugly-ass bird. This Keeper is quite interesting. The Celestial Court usually select local plant or animal guys to be the Keeper, but this one was the winged deity. That's why he appeared as a bird, a very ugly one by the way. But he sure was helpful. There was no telling if he was good or evil, as he took us to where the relic was. But he also lied, telling us that the lure was away, while this motherfucker was clearly right there. You fucking bird, you set me up. And this time, clearly Yellow Bro not only stole his master's vessels, he also stole his master's identity, as he appeared as the Maitreya. Then he sent the beautiful, elegant Long, Kang Jinglong, to stop us. Now that we know who is Kang Jinglong, one of the 28 constellation deities of the Celestial Court, he helped Wukong a lot in the journey. Of course, in the game, it's her. So what happened? Why is a celestial god serving Yellow Brow? Well, for the starter, one day, one of the 28 constellations, the Dawn Star, aka the Mao Ri Rooster, went missing. Yeah, this chicken. We'll talk about how he ended up like this in the next episode. As the Dawn Star went missing, Kang Jinglong volunteered to go look for him. There were rumors that said the Yellow Brow returned to the New West and was holding a series of grand ceremonies. So she went to the New West because she thought that maybe the Yellow Brow was behind it. Well, at least that's what she said to the court. In her portrait, we can learn that she was actually a secret admirer of Sun Wukong. That's why she came to the New West. You know, not because she wanted to find the Dawn Star, but because the Yellow Brow had one of Wukong's relics, and she wanted to know more. And Yellow Brow knew that she was here because of Wukong. So he did what he did best, you know, persuasion. He said to Kang Jin Star, if you really want to know about him, I'll show you. Then he let Kang Jinglong get into the sack. And this is why I think the sack had the ability to brainwash, because Kang Jinglong saw something in the sack. Then the heroic image of Sun Wukong in her mind just collapsed. As she said, is he, along with all the gods and Buddhas in the celestial realm, all like this? After a long silence, the Kang Jinglong finally knelt before Yellow Brow. Master, please take me as your disciple, she said. Now this is really interesting. We don't know what Yellow Brow showed her, but clearly it was some dark shit involving all the gods, Buddhas, and even Wukong. Seeing such dark truth, along with the brainwashing power of the sack, Kang Jinglong broke down mentally and started serving the Yellow Brow ever since. Here we can take a wild guess. All the gods, Buddhas in the celestial realm preserved their immortality by absorbing the wills, in other words, the souls of the mortals. Yes, immortality was based on mortals' lives. That's why the will was a widely used currency. Yo, this shit is fucked up. And that's why Sun Wukong gave up his Buddhahood to fight once again. Not only for his freedom, but also for the innocent mortals. Now that is true hero. But anyway, that's just my theory. We will talk more about the hidden truth once we go into more chapters. So the guess is that Yellow Brow showed the Kang Jinglong part of the truth, and with the power of Wukong's relic, it was enough to twist her mind, and we had to fight her in the game. Personally, I feel very bad going into this fight after knowing her story. She better not be dead, Game Science, or I'll unsubscribe you on TikTok. Poor lady, she came here because she cared, but that care also became his weakness. That's just sad, man. And then she opened the gold symbol with her horn, just like in the journey. Another tribute. Nicely done, Game Science. Then, my favorite character in the game, Wukong's brother and our good uncle, Zhu Bajie. Please forgive me, but we won't be talking about him in this chapter. Otherwise, this video would be too long. But I will talk about his story in details in the next chapter because you know he played a major role in the next chapter. Right now, just know that he was one of the journey game and he and Wukong were pretty close at the end of the journey, and he really cared and respected Wukong as a big brother. You know, that's why he was here helping us. Well, to be honest, not much of a help, but thank you anyway, uncle. Hahaha, the short legs. As for the Turtle General, he came back to fight Yellow Brow along with the Snake General. Yellow Brow used the Wukong's relic and caused a massive snowstorm. Even as gods, they were still bound to their animal instinct. Eventually, the Turtle General went to hibernate and the Snake General was killed. All we could see was his remains. We don't know why they fought Yellow Brow. I guess they tried to retrieve Wukong's relic because they were quite close to Wukong. Likewise, the third prince of the kingdom Flowing Sand also came back because he thought Yellow Brow had some evil schemes going on. But you know the rest, he lost and got locked up by Yellow Brow. And his four captains were twisted as the monsters they were, serving Yellow Brow. But he had to destroy his senses in order to keep sane. I wonder why didn't his master come and save him? Then this old flopping Long, Chen Long, one of the zodiac deities, he flopped so bad and asked us to get a pill for him from the street dog, otherwise he'll be dead. Which we did, and pay attention to street dog right here, as he picked up the dust from the ground and making a pill, knowing it was for Chen Long. What a friend. Then Chenlong just threw the pill away. Yep, they just knew each other too well. Then Chenlong pulled out a scroll given by Erlang, the secret divinity. The scroll was a very powerful vessel that it had a hidden world inside of it, which was perfect to help us, the destined ones, unnoticed. Inside the the scroll, we had the cook, the pharmacist, Xu Dog. Then the weed planter. Wait, did I say weed? The herbs planter, Chen Long. The bootlegger. The gold upgrader, Shen Monkey. And the arms dealer. The blacksmith, Yin Tiger. All four of them were the zodiac deities, and they offered help many times in the journey. There were 12 of them. Originally, they weren't animals, but in the game, clearly Game Science changed a little bit and connected them with the Chinese zodiac animals, which I think is pretty cool and made it easier to remember. Otherwise, it would be very complicated to explain their original meanings. But anyway, back to the four. In the game, they were closer to Sun Wukong than the others, so they wanted to help. Even though it meant getting cast out by the Celestial Court, they still chose to do it because they really value the friendship with the Great Sage. Knowing their choice, Erlang also offered help as he gave them this precious vessel, the Ruyi Scroll. Some good buddies they were, huh? Both Erlang and the Four. By the way, Yin Tiger was my top 3 favorite bosses in the game because his fight was just sick. The moves, man. Then, as we progress in the game, we will meet one of the Yellow Brow's 4 disciples, the non-white, or as in Chinese, Bu Bai. His story was rather tragic. He was an actor of the opera troupe, and his dream was to play the hero role. But all he got was the jester role, the clown, because of his look. He didn't look righteous enough, and the people didn't like him because his face was always painted in white, as the role required. And one day he suggested a role switch, but obviously he got mocked. Then he just beat up the guy who played the hero role and take his role. As you can imagine, people didn't like it, and the owner of the troupe kicked him out. And then he lost it and he killed the guy who played the hero, flayed his face and put it on his own face. Then this dude went back to the stage to play the hero role. Well, if it was me, I would lose my shit if I saw that. Of course, the audience panicked and started screaming. And in the end, the well-respected monk from the temple, Yellowbrow, took him in as his disciple and asked him to guard his path. And he said to non-white, one day there will be a destined one coming this way. If you can kill him and take his face, you will be the true hero. I kinda like my face, so no thank you. Then this One Punch Man, the non-able, or in Mandarin it was 不能. He was the most genuine monk here at the New Thunderclap Temple, and that was why he was here kneeling in the snow. Yellowbrow punished him and asked him to repent here. But why though? Why was he punished? Well, he said to Yellowbrow, as I may quote, Master, you have always taken the clever route, which is why it is difficult for you to attain Buddhahood. It seems you can do everything, but in reality, you can do nothing. Yes, he just said that to his master's face. Savage! He disagreed with Yellowbrow's path, and that's why he was punished. Yellowbrow ordered him to have his hands tied on his back to reflect on his faults so that he could stand up free again. But as you can see, countless years passed and he was still kneeling there because he believed his path was right. Through his words, it's easy to guess that his path is to seek strength to fight for the weak. Dude, much respect. And Yellowbrow, on the other hand, was a complete faker. Look at the cleanse, look at the move, faker. What was that? Sorry, wrong faker. The reason why I said Yellowbrow was a faker was because clearly he made a light ring for himself on his back as a symbol of Buddha, like this one on the actual Buddha. Clearly Yellowbrow wasn't worthy of it, so he made one for himself to prove that he was a Buddha, as he claimed to be. On the other hand, his disciple, the non-able, had earned the authentic golden body, which meant he was on the right way to attain Buddhahood because of his determination to fight for the weak. Respect, bro. Then another disciple for Yellowbrow, the non-pure, or as in Mandarin, 不净. Well, he was just lazy and slacking off all day. Not much to talk about. Then we met the last disciple, the non-void, or as we say in Mandarin, 不空, on the request of the poor little fox. Now that we know he was the young scholar who killed the little fox in the chapter 2 animation, obviously his conscience was tormented after that and decided to become a monk, hoping to wash away his sin. Even after years of praying, he still couldn't find his peace because he wanted to know, what does the fox say?
What the fuck say?
Nah, just kidding. As non-able once debated with him, nonsense. Killing is killing. Brother, the pretense behind justifying killing is the real sin. The non-void was speechless and the two never debated again. Well, at least he felt guilty about it. I'm afraid he'll never rest in peace truly. By the way, there are many tales of fox squires in Chinese mythology, as fox would transform into beautiful women and seduce men, taking their lives and essences. Kinda like a succubus figure. But not this little fox though, she was good. She wanted to be a fox immortal, and it required not taking essences from humans, as she just began her path. And then, you know what happened. She became a scarf. Poor little fox. And now let's talk about the spells we learned in this chapter. The Ring of Fire, a defensive spell which Wukong used in the journey. He drew a ring around Tang Monk and told him to stay in a circle so that the Yaoguais couldn't touch him as he went scout ahead. But of course, the game didn't listen to him and they left the circle and got captured by Yaoguai. But again, story for another time. And then the spellbinder that Maitreya taught us, just like he taught Wukong in the journey, Legacy. Then the guy who guided us here, the green-capped martialist, or as his real name, Yang Xian, the goat of the Main Mountain Brothers, also sent here by Erlang to help us. In a portrait, clearly the Maitreya knew about Erlang's plan. Even more, he was helping the plan, as he offered Erlang a hideout free from the detection of the Celestial Court and the Buddhas, as Erlang was hiding something very important. And we'll talk about their plan in a future chapter. Also, just like what Bajie said, this time in the game, the Maitreya intentionally allowed Yellowbrow to steal his vessels to play out the Celestial Court's plan so that their actual plan can work, to truly help Wukong. Much appreciation, sir. And finally, let's talk about this fake Maitreya, the Yellow Brow. As a member of Mount Lingshan, he didn't agree with the Buddha's doctrine. Unlike the other monks, he believed that the true meaning of life shouldn't be restraining all desires and pursue Dharma, but to embrace the moments of anger, joy, sorrow, etc. because that is just the nature. I can't say I disagree with that, but he was too aggressive, so he never got approved by the other monks. So he became the faker he was, pretended to be a Buddha, taking disciples just to prove that he was right. But his obsession of winning finally turned into the hypocrite he was. He named his 4 major disciples the exact same name of Tang monks. The non-void, in Mandarin it's 不空, as for Wukong. The non-able, 不能, as for Wu Neng, Zhu Baji's monk name. Non-pure, 不净, as for Wu Jing. Non-white, 不白, as for the white horse, who is actually the 3rd son of the West Sea Long King, a little white long. As you can see, Yellow Brow was so obsessed of winning, and he did everything he could to prove he was right, with the help of Wukong's relic. But just like his disciple said, he will never attain Buddhahood, because all he did was to fight for himself, to prove that he was right. Goodbye, faker. After beating Yellow Brow, the Maitreya helped us to retrieve Wukong's relic. Man, I wish I could catch a fish like that. Like always, enjoy the animation, guys.
You tarried in the mortal world for a good while, didn't you? Speak clearly.
Once again, I proved it to you, Jin Shanzi.
You chose a means to an end, not to a proof. You sow chaos in hearts just for the sake of winning. How absurd and pathetic.
If not for winning, why debate over means and ends?
You've probably wondered who is this monk in the end. It's Tang Monk, Wukong's master. I know. You're probably like, what? Well, it's him, but it's not him. It's a bit complicated. This is Jin Chanzi, the gold cicada, the second disciple of the Buddha. But he was cast out by the Buddha because he too disagreed with the Buddha's doctrine and argued with the Buddha, and that's why he was punished. The Buddha ordered him to live the mortal life 10 times to experience the endless cycles for mortals before he could attain Buddhahood. After 9 miserable lives, in his 10th life, he became the one we all know, the Tang Monk. And I guess this conversation is before he became the Tang Monk. And Yellowbrow really envied Jin Chanzi and wanted to be just like him because he held on to what he believed in, even if it meant to be cast out by the Buddha. And Yellowbrow wanted to be him, but he can never be him. And that's why he was so obsessed of winning and prove he was right. And he even pretended to be Tang Monk, or aka Jin Chanzi. That's why I say he was a hypocrite. He pretended to be Jin Chanzi, but on the other hand, he denied everything Jin Chanzi stood for. Like I said, a genuine faker. And that was the story of chapter 3, White Snow, Ice Cold. Again, sorry about the length of the video. It was a little bit too long, but you know there were a lot of things to cover. But anyway, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe. It will mean a lot to me. 欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。Have you ever wondered who the hell is this chicken? And what the hell is this thing? Well, you've come to the right place. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay the Storyteller and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today I'll be looking at chapter 4, Rosy Cheek, Grey Hair. Like always, I'll talk about how the game was related to the original Journey to the West story and the story of the game itself. For the record, this chapter is very complicated and there were schemes behind schemes behind schemes. So in order to understand the story fully, I'll only focus on the main story and the main characters. Hopefully it can help you guys understand the story a little better. Well, without further ado, let's begin. Before we start, let's talk about our good uncle, Zhu Bajie, because you know this chapter is about his love story. Bajie used to be a celestial god. He was the admiral of the celestial marine, you know, quite a high position. One day he got drunk on a celestial feast, barged into the lunar palace, and tried to harass a Chang'e. Well, can you blame him? Chang'es are the goddess living on the moon, famous for their beauty. Well, if it was me, this show would be banned. Of course, the Jade Emperor was angry and he was cast out of the celestial court, thrown down to the mortal realm and reincarnated. But his reincarnation went wrong and he became the pig while he was. A horny pig, I may add. And Bodhisattva Guanyin selected him to protect Tang Monk as his atonement, just like Wukong. And one day at a place called the Gao village, a local rich family, the Gao family, was looking for a proper husband for their youngest daughter, Gao Cuilan. As a horny pig, Bajie signed up for it. He was a hell of a labor and really impressed Mr. and Mrs. Gao. The only bad thing was that he ate too much, but that was fine. Soon, he married their youngest daughter, Gao Cuilan. You know, everything was going well and then everyone was happy. Then you just know that something will go wrong. Dude was drunk and revealed his true identity, a pig guy. Then you know, everyone just panicked. Eventually, he forcefully took Gao Cuilan, and locked her up, and noticed that Gao Cuilan wasn't actually his wife in the game, you know, the violet spider. It was this girl in the ending animation who feared him once he showed his true nature. Anyway, back to the journey. After hearing the story, Wukong and Tao Mang offered to help. Wukong asked Gao Cuilan to leave and he would stay here to deal with the pig guy. By the way, even though he was a horny pig, Bajie still had some principles, as he wouldn't break into the room without his wife's permission, and that's how the lady stayed unharmed. And please just allow me to show you the clip of how Wukong catfished Bajie, because it's just hilarious and epic.
那你就进来吧。
好，这太好了，猪来了。娘子，我老猪在这儿有礼了。啊？啊！娘子，你吹灯干什么？黑灯瞎火的，我老猪看不见你。
郎君
啊，
我在这儿呢。
啊，娘子，你既然已经答应我了，你还躲什么？啊？啊？
你长得那么丑，我害怕你。
娘子，我是丑了点儿，要好看还不容易，只是变来变去的太麻烦。再说，妻不嫌夫丑，我看就这么着吧。好。
Looking familiar, doesn't it?
I do miss the old days too. We were so happy back then.
Yep, Bajie learned his catfish trick from his brother Wukong. That's just hilarious. But anyway, let's just continue.
哎呦！
你只管做夫妻，也不管人家心里烦恼。
娘子，你烦恼些什么啊？娘子，你还有哪些不顺心的啊？
你整天云来雾去，不知是哪里人家，什么来历？
我早跟丈人说了，我叫朱刚烈，家住福林山云栈洞。你今儿个又怎么想问这个来了？娘子，你看，都夜深人静了，咱们还是早点安歇了吧？啊，娘子啊，你好大的力气，是不是嫌我来迟了？
还想做夫妻呢？我爹今天请了法师前来想你呢。
什么？法师？我不怕。就是你爹请下9天荡魔祖师来，他也不敢把我怎么样。
我爹说了，他今天请的是500年前大闹天宫的7天大圣前来想你。
啊，7天大圣？娘子，这是真的？
真的。
哎呀，坏了，坏了，坏了！哎呀，我得回去。
哎，回来！你别走啊！
娘子，你不知道啊，那闹天宫的弼马温有些本事，我怕弄不过他，坏了名声啊。我得先回洞府去。我日后再来呀。
郎君，你怎么舍下我一个人就走啊？
哎呀，那可怎么办呢？
哎，我跟你一块儿去。
啊？好，这太好了！娘子，走。
我可走不了路啊！
哎，我背着你啊！来。
郎君，你的洞府到底在哪儿啊？
娘子，你别急，再走一程就到了。哎呦，
还有多远呢？
你别问了。娘子，你怎么这么重了呀？啊？
你背不动我了。
背得动，背得动。
And finally, Bajie realized he was catfished by Wukong. Of course, he couldn't outrun Wukong, and then they went on a short battle. Now, pay attention to his weapon here. It's called the Nine-Toothed Reek, crafted by the Supreme Lord Lao, one of the three Qing supreme gods of Taoism. So it's not just a regular reek, in case you want to know about it. Anyway, during their conversation, Wukong realized that the pig guy was also selected by Bodhisattva Guan Yin to protect Tang Monk on the journey to the west, and he took him back to see Tang Monk. By the way, the pig had two monk names, Bajie, given by Bodhisattva Guan Yin, and Wu Neng, given by the Tang Monk. And that's the story of Zhu Bajie in the journey and how he joined the journey game. Now that we know who is Zhu Bajie, let's talk about what happened here at the webbed hollow in the journey. One day at the village, the Tang Monk saw a little cabin, so he said to his disciples, "It's always you guys go get food. This time I'll do it. It's just right there. I got this." The gang couldn't argue with him, so there he goes. Then he met 7 pretty ladies. Yes, as you can guess, they're spider guys. But Tang Monk didn't know that. He was like, "Man, may this humble monk get some food from you guys, please?" Then the ladies kindly invited him to go into their home for food, of course. In a novel, the ladies had a nice little chat with Tang Monk and even cooked him a meal. It sounds nice, right? Well, it would be nicer if they weren't cooking with human flesh and human grease. Yep, the Yao Guai secret recipe, only for $2.99. Of course, Tang Monk refused to eat it, which pissed off the Yao Guais. And plus, they already know that he was the Tang Monk from the conversation they had earlier. So they captured him with their threads, because rumors said that Tang Monk's meat can grant immortality. That's why most Yao Guais in the journey either wanted to eat him or to fuck him, to get his meat or his meat.
Yeah, boy.
Back to the disciples. They knew something was wrong as the master was gone for too long. So Wukong decided to go check it out. In the novel, he summoned the keeper and he asked about the Yao Guais. The keeper told him where to find the Yao Guais, as they would usually go bath at this hour. And Wukong did find them bathing in the pond. How the hell did you know, you old pervert? Well, of course, Wukong wasn't into the sexual stuff, so he decided to steal their clothes to trap them in the pond. In the novel, he was gonna kill the Yao Guais, but there was an old saying, decent men don't bully the women. So he was like, nah, not gonna kill them. It'll hurt my reputation. And you might be wondering, how would stealing their clothes trap them in the pond? Well, in the ancient times, Chinese people took the chastity of women very seriously. Women could never show their body, not even their arms, to other men except their husbands. And Yao Guais transformed into human forms were also bound to this moral. And plus, in the novel, they were completely naked in the pond, so this would work, at least for a while. Then Wukong returned to the gang with women clothes. Bajie was like, "Big bro, where did you go? The brothel?" He told them what happened and suggested to go rescue the master. Of course, Bajie was excited. He was like, "Big brother monkey, we can't leave any loose end. The Yao Guais might still cause trouble. Here, let me go take him out while you go rescue master." As you can imagine, this horny pig was like, "Ma'am, it's too hot today. Can I join you for a nice little bath?" The ladies rejected, but he still went for it. Skinny dipping, woo! Then he transformed into a catfish, just like in the ending animation, and was taking advantages of the ladies, swimming in between their legs and stuff. The TV show didn't quite show it because it was all age appropriate, but you get the idea.
Yeah, boy.
Then he switched to his mean face and tried to kill the ladies. But he was a noob and got trapped by the threads too. Well, at least he got what he came for. The spiders knew they were in trouble, so they fled, leaving Tang Monk behind. By the way, the pond that the spiders bathed in was called the Purifying Spring, where we fought Zhu Bajie in the game. In the novel, this was the bathing place of the 7 fairies of the Celestial Court. But the fairies stopped showing up after the 7 spider guys came. Interesting, huh? Anyway, as the Yao guys fled, they got Tao Monk and moved on. Then the gang stopped by a Taoist temple, the Yellow Flower Temple. And the master of the temple, as you can probably guess, is the 100 Eye, a centipede guy. He was with the spider guys, and the spiders fled to the temple and told him what happened. He decided to poison the gang to get revenge for his sisters, as well as getting Tao Monk. Wukong was cautious, but the others were poisoned, so naturally they started fighting. He had many eyes that could shoot powerful lasers. That was why he was called the 100 Eye. Just like in the game, the lasers gave Wukong quite a hard time, and he retreated. Then he saw an old lady burning paper money by the road. Burning paper money is a Chinese ritual to honor the dead, as you wouldn't want your loved ones to go to the underworld broke, right? This tradition started in late Han Dynasty, and we still do it today. But as time moved on, our offerings also moved on. Like rollies, mansions, and even tanks and private jets. All for the sake of our ancestors and loved ones, hoping they live good down there.
Nice.
But anyway, back to the story. Wukong saw the old lady and joined her in burning money. The old lady was like, "Are you mocking me? I'm burning money for my late husband who had been poisoned by the centipede guy." Wukong was like, "Well, I'm burning for my master and my brothers. They are poisoned and they are gonna die. I do it just in case." Nah, the old lady was actually the lady of Li Mountain, a celestial god. She did all that to help Wukong. She told Wukong that he can go to the Purple Cloud Mountain and get help from the Bodhisattva Pilanpo, there where Bodhisattva Pilanpo lived in. This scene sounds quite familiar, doesn't it? In the game, we too ran into a character like this, mourning for her late husband, but in fact was helping us. I guess this is the daughter of Lady of Li Mountain. I'll talk about why when we go into the game more. Bodhisattva Pilanpo is the mother of Dawnstar, one of the 28 constellation deities, aka the Mao Ri rooster. Yeah, this chicken, just like Kangjing star in the chapter 3. I've talked about the 28 constellation deities in my last video, so if you're interested, please go check it out. It was quite long, but it was very informational. So what happened to the Dawnstar? How did the celestial god become like this? Well, we'll talk about that later. Pilanpo had a very powerful vessel, the Weaver's Needle. It was crafted in the Dawnstar's eye, which is why it could be empowered by his body in the game. With the Weaver's Needle, the 100 Eye was beaten. In the novel, he was a backstabbing bastard, hiding in his temple, trying to take Tao Monk for his own, and leaving the 7 spider guys outside of the temple and getting killed by Wukong. And he stabbed them in the back again in the game. What a douchebag. In the end, the 100 Eye was taken back by Bodhisattva Pilanpo as a god of her mountain, and the 7 spider guys were all killed by Wukong in the novel. And that's what happened here in the journey. Obviously, game science changed the story a little bit. In the game, it was Baji who killed all the spider guys, and he spared one, the violet spider, for obvious reason. Now that we've covered the background story of the chapter, let's look into it. Chapter 4, Rosy Cheeks, Gray Hair. In order to help you understand this chapter better, let's focus on the 100 Eye and who was behind him.
This, along with those relics inside him, shall free me of Kunlun's reign.
This line contained a lot of information. First of all, Mount Kunlun is a very important mountain in Chinese mythology because the Queen Mother lived there. Yep, the Queen Mother of the Celestial Court, the Jade Emperor's wife, the leader of all goddesses. And it's safe to say that she's behind all this, because the Violet Spider was obviously a fairy of the Celestial Court under Queen Mother's charge. And in the game, the Violet Spider and 100 Eye called each other brothers and sisters, suggesting that they both serve the Queen Mother. So what is going on here? What's their scheme? Well, the truth involves the Celestial Court. For countless years, this had been the range of the Celestial Court. The court would take the Yao guys here and make pills with their essences. And this bird, the Crane Immortal, is running everything here for the court. They built a prison with the pagodas at the ruins to trap everyone inside. That's why the fourth sister said this, because they were trapped inside and she'd never been out of the mountain.
What's it like out there? beyond these mountains.
I'll show you, darling. Please don't die. So who is the fourth sister? My guess is that she was in love with the previous destined one, and they were gonna marry. And that's why there were lanterns here screaming big day. In the game, in Chinese, they said 大喜, and this word is only used in wedding ceremonies, nothing else. So it's obvious. She helped us because of love, and the treasures that we found were actually her dowry. She gave them to us without hesitation, even though we might not remember her. Also, she helped us many times in the game when we were in tough situations and never even claimed the credit. Even when she was in danger, she still thought about us first and told us to run. Okay, my lady. Just kidding. The fourth sister was clever and she found out about the prison. But obviously she wasn't able to tear down the talisman. And also she didn't want us to get involved in this scheme. The smile, man. What more can you ask from a lady? And that's why she was taken by the Crane Immortal. She just knew too much. And the Crane will make her into pills. Something like this. By the way, this Supreme Inspector was the most trusted god of Jade Emperor. He monitors all the gods and takes care of all dirty works for the Emperor. So he was like the FBI. And the hand on his neck, it belonged to the Jade Emperor. Now we know what the Emperor was up to. Let's talk about the Queen Mother. Her exact words: they've taken too much profit. This time, our principle and interest must be taken back. So the Queen Mother, representing Kunlun, a powerful force, also wanted a piece of this. Unlike the Celestial Court, their scheme is to breed the Amoran worms as a tool to manipulate the gods, Yaoguais, etc. They even killed Bodhisattva Pilanpo and took her hands to breed the worms. They put the worm cocoons inside the hand, then they hatched out. Hence the right hand worm we fought in the game. As for the left hand, it was eaten by the frog. Well done, Froggy! And that's why the Dawn Star went missing in chapter 3. He came back to look for his mother, but was defeated and captured by the 100 Eye. The 100 Eye planted a golden cocoon inside of him. Then he became this crazy rooster he was, the Duskville. That's just sad, man. A worried son came back looking for his mother. The mother was already dead, and the son got captured and twisted at his mom's place. That's just too depressing. That's why the pretty snake, Hong Yi, asked us to end his suffering. In the portrait, she was most likely to be the daughter of Lady of Li Mountain, a close friend of Bodhisattva Pilanpo. So she and the Dawn Star were close childhood friends. She couldn't do it, so she asked us to kill him. My deepest condolences. Now that's why this game was called the Black Myth. Shits are just too dark. Another key character in this chapter is Violet Spider, Bajie's wife, who used to be a celestial fairy. She fell in love with Bajie at first sight, and that love was so intense that she followed him when he got cast out to the mortal realm and became the spider guy she was. So why did she become a spider? Well, it's not official, but there's a theory I think that makes sense. In Mandarin, spider sounds exactly the same as a pig. Spider is 蜘蛛 and the pig is 一蜘蛛. So the poor little fairy followed her love after he was cast out and reincarnated as a pig. But obviously she heard it wrong. He became 一蜘蛛, not 蜘蛛. But it doesn't matter. Love is love. After reunited, the two finally got together. Such a beautiful scene. But as you know, Bajie had a job to do, so he went on to the journey. Well, he really didn't have a choice because he was to be atoned, and he had to finish the journey. Well, fortunately, they had a daughter, the sixth sister. Now notice that only the sixth sister was their daughter, and the other sisters were adopted by the Violet Spider, left by the other spider guys. And they called themselves the Zhu family. Poor lady. She did everything she could to follow her love. In their plan, they were gonna get us, the destined ones, through Zhu Bajie. But she just couldn't harm Bajie. And Bajie, on the other hand, broke her heart again and again and again, even though all she ever wanted was a proper wedding. Then we know the rest of the story. The plan failed and the 100 Eyes stabbed her in the back again. Well, it was all part of the scheme, because in the portrait, the Crane Immortal once told him that the Jade Emperor knew what the Queen Mother was up to and decided not to interfere out of respect. But once it's done, they will have to stay. The spiders. The court wanted their cores to make pills, and the 100 Eye also had his own scheme. He wanted to take all the relics inside of us to break free from the ring of Kunlun. In other words, the Queen Mother. Just like in the journey, he used the annoying gold lasers. Fortunately, the Venom Taoist, Wulong, the centipede of the Main Mountain Brothers, sent here by Erlang to help us, guided us to find the key vessel, the Weaver's Needle. So the gold laser wasn't really a trouble for us. Again, thank you, big brother Erlang. After defeating the 100 Eye, we were able to get Baji's wife, the Violet Spider, but she was dying as the 100 Eye took Wukong's relic out of her, and Baji couldn't even look at his wife. My guess is he was technically now against the Celestial Court by helping Wukong and the Destined One. So if he really went back to his family, who knew what the court would do to them? You've seen what happened to the other family in chapter 5, right? So he had to stay away in order to protect them. But he wasn't all that heartless, because we can see the lotus was full here, and the one that we got was missing a seed. Obviously, our sneaky uncle stole one to save his wife, which is perfectly fine. Go do it. And like always, enjoying the beautiful animation, guys.
月光在西边的城楼，
思念是眉间的药，
月年年望相思，寻常最长久。
汹涌如潮流，
忐忑似轻舟。
Okay, let's pause here for a second. No one knows who is this handsome guy, and not even the producer of the game. You know, Game Science hired an animation studio to work on this scene, and the studio insisted to keep this scene and keep this mysterious man. But they never explained who the hell is this guy. And the studio even offered 20% off of the whole animation. So Game Science was like, alright, fine, let's keep it. So his identity really remained a mystery. So we called him the 20% off God. Anyway, let's continue.
有你相伴，
这一路多么多么自由。
云卷
云舒
风起，
一周，
从
立春到立秋，在那一刻我爱上你的所有。忘了是心田的沟，
记得是老套的酒，
知音是相拥无言。
愿天黑花当你，总会说不够。
相伴这一路，多么多么无忧。
晚霜
朝露
昙花
苍过，
黑
也不过白昼。
听错了风，又怎么会有以后？
飘摇似轻舟。放手这一路，可怜了有多久？
欢喜
或者哀愁，绽放或者不朽，永远无分下一世莫回眸。
真情
难留
假意
未够。
相守，
今生有求，
下雨时相遇，请别再会。
With that beautiful animation, that brings us to the end of this chapter. Like I said, this chapter was very complicated and there were a lot of schemes going on. You know, Kunlun, so the celestial court, the ranch and everything. You know, that's why it was called the Black Myth. But I really like what Game Science did to Zhu Bajie though. The love story was beautiful and I'm really glad that Game Science added this part. But anyway, I'm Jay the Storyteller and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe, it will mean a lot to me. Guys, you know it's almost the Chinese New Year, you know, which is why I'm wearing all red. And I just wanted to say thank you for all your support and all your suggestions. It really meant a lot to me. Thank you. 诸位，过年好 Happy Chinese New Year. Again, I'm Jay the Storyteller. Thank you again for watching this video. And in the future, I'll keep making the good videos. Hopefully you guys like it. And again, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you again for watching this video. 知后事如何？欲知后事如何？且听下回分解。诸位，过年好 ！Hello everyone, Happy Chinese New Year! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay the Storyteller and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today we'll be looking at Chapter 5, Golden Child, Crimson Blood. Like always, I'll talk about the main characters appeared in this chapter and how they were related to the original Journey to the West story. Hopefully it can help you guys understand the story a little bit better. As you can notice playing the game, this chapter was special. I mean, it was short, but there were a lot of stories behind it. So we won't be looking at all the characters in this chapter. We'll only focus on the main story, you know, the story of the mighty Boar King, because that's what this chapter was all about. Well, without further ado, let's begin. Let's start with the son, the rat boy. One day, the journey again went past the mountain, and they saw a little boy all tied up, hung on the tree. Wukong knew it was trouble. He wanted to move along, but Tang Monk insisted to go check it out. So they approached the boy. The boy was like, "Kind sir, please help. Me and my parents were robbed. My daddy was killed and my mom was taken by the bad guys because she was pretty." As you can guess, this is the rat boy. I wonder what your mom and dad would say about this, boy. It seems like that he liked being tied up, as he did that in the game too. Well, I guess he was just really into the roleplay stuff. Well, no comments on that. Anyway, Tang Monk believed what he said and he asked to cut him down. The boy was all innocent and harmless, but Wukong knew he was up for no good. He offered to carry him to keep an eye on the boy. He was like, "Boy, I know you're a Yao Guai. Don't do anything stupid and don't fucking pee on me or you'll be fucking dead." In the novel, Wukong wanted just to smash the boy into the ground hard to kill him. The boy sensed it and he made his spirit left the body to get away before Wukong does that, and Wukong ended up killing his empty shell. The boy returned to Tang Monk, cast a strong wind and grabbed the Tang Monk. Wukong summoned the local keeper and asked about the Yao Guai. The keeper replied, "Great sage, the Yao Guai's name is Rat Boy. He is the son of the Boar King and the Rakshasi." Wukong returned and was like, "Easy, brothers. That little brat is my nephew. His father and I are sworn brothers, and we go way back. Here, let me go talk to him." Back to Mount Huaguo, Wukong has 6 sworn brothers. They were Yao Guai kings of other mountains, and the Boar King was one of them, and he was the only one that appeared again in the novel. As for the other 5, only their names were mentioned in the novel, and there wasn't really any story of them. But who knows, they may appear in the game's DLC. Hurry up, Game Science. Game Science changed the Boar King's story a little bit, added this part of them fighting together against the Celestial Court, which didn't really happen in the original journey. But I like this recomposition though. Wukong really needed more brothers. But back to the novel though, the two never spoke again after Wukong went on the journey to the west, so they weren't that close. So naturally, the son, Rat Boy, didn't know Sun Wukong was his father's warm brother, his uncle. So he was like, "You foul monkey dare to take advantage of me? Get out of my face." Notice the fire spell he used. It was the Samadhi fire. It was the purest fire in the world and cannot be put out with regular water. So Wukong and Bajie had to retreat. And Wukong told Bajie, "Brother, you really should be more careful next time. Even a little boy could hurt you. You stay right here and I'll show you how it's done." Then Wukong returned to face the Rat Boy again. Notice the 5 element cards. They were created and crafted by the Rat Boy. The Boy King really liked it, so he ordered to craft bigger cards for Rat Boy. And the big cards with influence of the Samadhi fire. And over the years, they became the Yao Guais we fought in the game. Not so cute now, huh? Anyway, the Samadhi fire also gave Wukong trouble, and he fainted because his blood and qi were jammed. Bajie knew what the problem was, and he gave Wukong a nice little massage, and Wukong finally woke up. And that's what this part of the final animation was about. Bajie saved Wukong. After waking up, Wukong said to Bajie, "Shit, that Samadhi fire is really tough." Bajie was like, "No shit, dude." Then Wukong said, "Bajie, you go to the South Sea and ask Bodhisattva Guanyin to help us." And the Rat Boy heard their conversation. He was clever. He transformed into Guanyin and waited on Bajie's way, which completely fooled Bajie. So naturally, they went back. As you can imagine, Bajie was captured, and Wukong was too late to stop them. Then Wukong thought a brilliant idea. He transformed into the Boar King, Rat Boy's father, and tried to ask the Rat Boy to let go of Tang Monk and Zhu Bajie. But Rat Boy had some wits. He became suspicious and was like, "Dad, a few days ago I met the Grandmaster Taoist, Zhang Daoling. He asked about my birthday and hours and stuff so that he could take a look at my fortune. I don't remember the details. Can you remind me again?" Wukong was like, "How the hell am I supposed to know that shit?" So his cover got blown. After a brief battle, Wukong retreated again. Fortunately, Bodhisattva Guanyin knew what happened here, so she came to help. She put out the Samadhi fire with the holy water. Then Wukong said, "Bodhisattva, why don't you just subdue him?" Guanyin was like, "Say no more. Watch and learn." Then she trapped the Rat Boy with her Lotus Throne. That's where he learned his Blade Lotus trick in the game. Anyway, being trapped by the blades, Rat Boy begged for mercy, and Guanyin did show him mercy. But the ungrateful brat didn't accept his failure, and he was gonna go round too. So Guanyin tossed out the gold bands given by the Buddha to restrain the Rat Boy. The bands would cause a great deal of pain upon triggering, exactly like the tightening band on Wukong's head. Unable to fight the bands, the Rat Boy chose to bow in the end, and Bodhisattva Guanyin took him back as a servant, and the gang continued their journey. And that's the story of Rat Boy, the son of the Boar King. Now let's talk about the wife, the mother, the beautiful Rakshasi. In the journey, one day the gang approached a flaming mountain, and technically the flaming mountain was caused by Wukong. When Wukong broke out of Supreme Lord Lao's furnace, and he kicked down the furnace, and a brick under the furnace fell to the mortal realm, caused everlasting fire, hence the flaming mountain. In the mountain there was everlasting fire, so it was extremely hot, and they weren't even close to the mountain. After talking to the local people, they learned about the flaming mountain and everlasting fire in it, and it happened to be in their way to the west, so they had to put out the fire somehow, otherwise they couldn't go through. And only the plankton fan of the Rakshasi was able to put out the fire of the mountain. Here, this fan in the game, a very powerful vessel. Obviously it wasn't as easy as it sounds. Rakshasi was angry at Wukong for getting his son taken by Bodhisattva Guanyin. At that time, the Boar King was unfaithful. He got a concubine, the jade-faced fox, and left Rakshasi alone in their home. And that's what made it worse. Rat Boy was all Rakshasi had. After taken by Guanyin, it was very hard to see her son again. Well, on the other hand, Rat Boy got a proper job serving one of the most powerful people in the world, instead of being the street thug he was. Do you even know how many people are losing their jobs down these days? So why are you whining? Quit being a bitch. Nah, I'm just kidding. She had every right to be angry. She said to Wukong, "If you really want that fan, stand there and let me slash you with my sword. Then I'll let you borrow it." Which Wukong did, and of course he was unharmed because he was so tough. And Rakshasi never wanted to lend him the fan, so she blew him away. And Wukong was blown so far away that he ended up at a new Mount Sumeru. Bodhisattva Lingji's mountain. It was about 25,000 kilometers away from the Flaming Mountain. Yes, you heard that right, 25,000 kilometers. And that's how powerful the Plankton Fan was. Wukong was like, damn, I flew so far away. Then he told Lingji what happened, and Lingji offered help. He gave him the Wind Tamer to deal with the Plankton Fan. Yeah, the Wind Tamer from chapter 2. Wukong used it here instead of the Yellow Wing Ridge. Anyway, he got back to the Rakshasi and asked again to borrow the fan. With the help of the Wind Tamer, the Plankton Fan couldn't move in a bit this time, and Rakshasi ran back to her den. Then Wukong did what he did best. He transformed into a cicada and flew into the cave, just like we did in the game. What's different is that he flew into the Rakshasi's teacup and got inside of her body. I know what you're thinking, you perverts, but no, he went inside of her stomach. Anyway, with Wukong looking shit out in her stomach, Rakshasi agreed to let him borrow the fan. Wukong was like, thank you, sister-in-law. Goodbye. But what Rakshasi really gave him was a fake fan. Not only it didn't put out the fire, it made the fire stronger. Wukong knew he was fooled, so he decided to go straight to the Bull King and ask the favor from him. But just like I mentioned before, the two never spoke after Wukong went on the journey. And the Bull King was also angry at Wukong for getting his son taken by Guan Yin, and he refused to help. And he said, for old time's sake, I'll let you walk away. But judging by your words, you bullied my wife before coming here, and you have to pay for it. Here, let's go a few rounds. If you can win, I'll ask wife to let you borrow the fan. In the novel, the two went on about 100 rounds and were still tied. Then, all of a sudden, the Bull King left for his friend's party. Yep, it was pretty random. Wukong followed him and transformed into the Bull King and stole his mount, the Bishui Golden-Eyed Beast. You see that? Remember to always lock your cars in public parking lots, guys. It's easy to guess. Wukong went back to Rakshasi as the Bull King. But of course, the Rakshasi was still mad at the Bull King for having a concubine and breaking her heart. But Wukong was like, I'm sorry, darling, but you're the one I truly love. See, I rushed back right after I heard that Sun Wukong caused you problems, because you are the only one I truly care. And the two made peace. Rakshasi was like, don't worry, my king. I gave that monkey the fake fan. Wukong was like, good job, darling. Where's the real one? Is it secure? Here, let me hold on to it, just in case. So Rakshasi gave him the actual Plankton Fan, and Wukong was like, look who I am. Thanks for the fan, sister. Then he left. Then the actual Bull King came home. As you can imagine, Rakshasi was pissed. The Bull King was like, whoa, 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 darling, what are you doing? Knowing he was the real Bull King, Rakshasi told him what happened, and the circle began. The Bull King transformed as Zhu Baji and tricked the fan back, and that's why I called it the circle. And this was the only time that Wukong was completely fooled in the journey. That's pretty funny, the transformation trick circle. Then the actual Baji came, and Wukong told him what happened, and the two went on pursuit. Long story short, the Bull King couldn't fight Wukong and Baji combined, so he fled, and Baji led the charge of the Fox Squire's den and killed the jade-faced fox, the Bull King's concubine. In the TV show, it was Sand Monk who killed the fox, but in the novel, it was Zhu Baji, which is why he said this in the game.
I took out the bull's concubine with a whack of my rake too! Turned out, she was a fox squire!
Honestly, I think that wasn't really necessary. You know, the Fox Squire didn't really do anything wrong. There was no need to kill her. But anyway, they chased the Bull King all the way home. Rakshasi didn't want trouble, so she wanted to just give them the fan. The Bull King was like, no. Eventually, the Bull King showed his true form. And by the way, Yao Guais are often stronger in their true form, because when they fought in human forms, there were limitations. In the novel, this fight was very much like a scheme. When the gang faced other Yao Guais in the journey, Wukong would go ask the ones above to help if they needed it. And many other Yao Guais had powerful vessels and even connected to the ones above. You know, their servants, mounts, and disciples that came down to the mortal realm and become Yao Guais. But the Bull King had no vassal and no connections, caused no harm to the gang. All he did was that he didn't want Wukong to borrow the Plankton Fan. which was understandable. But in the novel, just like the animation showed, the celestial army, the army of the Mount Lingshan, from Buddhism, came here to help uninvited. And this god, Naja, one of the most popular characters in Chinese mythology, and his father, Li Jing, the pagoda heavenly king, they weren't regular gods. They were like the best fighters of the celestial court, now making new videos talking about their stories in the future. Anyway, back to the game. They didn't just come here to help Wukong, they were here specifically for the Bull King. And Naja, this badass kid, slashed Bull King's head for more than 10 times. In the journey, the head could grow back, and Naja just slashed it again and again and again and again. Eventually, the Bull King couldn't take it anymore. He bent the knees and converted to Buddhism. Like I said, a complete scheme targeting the Bull King. And the game didn't think that much. They were happy to take the fan and put out the fire and continue their journey. Well, judging by Wukong's words in the game, he knew all about it, and there was nothing he could do. That's why he remained silent. Well, that was what happened here at the Flaming Mountain in the journey. Now let's look into it. Chapter 5, Golden Child, Crimson Blood. Let's start at the very beginning, the birth of the Red Boy. In the game, technically, Red Boy wasn't their actual son. He was the spirit of the son of the Yaksha king, preserved and reborn at the cost of the king's life. Even though the Yakshas looked evil, they were actually Dharma protectors of Buddhism. In the portrait, the whole Yaksha population was slaughtered by Mount Lingshan, Buddhism. And the Yaksha king had to sacrifice his life to preserve his son's spirit so that he could be reborn again. Now that's just interesting. Buddhism killed their own Dharma protectors. And on the other hand, Supreme Lord Lao, one of the 3 Qing supreme gods in Taoism, offered to help to preserve the spirit of the son of Yaksha king. Then he asked his disciple, Rakshasi, to drink the water from the river of childbearing, which was a magical river in the kingdom of all women. And its water had the power to get women pregnant. In the journey, Tang Monk and Zhu Baojie drank from the river and they got pregnant. It was very funny, but again, a story for another time. Back to Rakshasi. She was asked to drink from the river to bear this child, to put in the spirit of the Yaksha king's son, hence the Red Boy. That's why I said he was technically not their son. As for this capped guy, he was one of the furnace servants of Supreme Lord Lao. After Wukong broke out of the furnace, he got blamed and cast down to the mortal realm and become the keeper of the Flaming Mountain. He also loved the Rakshasi in secret. That's why he was there when the child was born. The Bull King and Rakshasi's job was to raise the boy to manhood, to be the living proof of the crimes of Mount Lingshan, aka Buddhism. So the poor family was just victim and pawn in the conspiracy between Taoism and Buddhism. That's why Rakshasi said this.
Your reluctance is plain, just like my own. They forced me to drink from the river of childbearing, to bear that boy in my womb.
That's sad. They had no say in the whole thing, just pure victims. And the Bull King made compromises. He left his mount, the Bishui golden-eyed beast, to guard the cave, to guard the boy after he was born. Of course, at the beginning, he hated everything about it and separated from the Rakshasi to avoid seeing the boy. That was when he had his concubine, the jade-faced fox guy. But obviously, according to the portrait, as time moved on, kingship grew in them. The Bull King treated the Red Boy as if his own son and loved and cared about him until the journey game came and ruined everything. Giving away his son, bullied his wife, even himself was forced to convert to Buddhism. Wukong realized that powerful Yaoguais like them didn't really have a choice. They either kneel or die. That's why he said these things to Bull King. What a cruel world. Even powerful Yaoguai kings like Wukong and the Bull King couldn't decide their own fates, not to mention the regular mortals. They were just meat on a cutting board. Again, this is why the game was called the Black Myth. Shits are dark, and that's why after the journey, Wukong gave up his Buddhahood to fight against the Celestial Court once again, for his freedom and all those innocent mortals. His plan was to kill himself and truly break free, leaving his 6 senses for the Destined One to inherit his power and his will. Erlang helped with his plan. He summoned the bosses we fought in the game to play along in the plan, and each guarded a relic. I've talked about it in my first video, so if you you haven't seen it, please go check it out. It was very informational, and I've gone through the story of the journey to the west briefly. You know, like who is Sun Wukong and who is Erlang, the secret divinity. So if you're interested, please go check it out. It'll help you understand the story a lot better. Even though Wukong told the Boar King to stay away from his relic because it would bring him huge trouble, the Boar King still chose to guard it in his stomach, even though it was harming his body. Unlike the other bosses in the previous chapters that each had their own schemes, he just wanted to hold on to it and give it back to us, the Destined One. And on the other hand, the rat boy found out about his true identity and wanted the relic's power to revenge. That's why they had this father and son conversation in the animation. Of course, the Boar King wouldn't give it to him because taking revenge against Buddhism is just straight up suicide. But we all know it's impossible to reason with teenagers, especially when they are angry. So naturally, Rat Boy attacked the Flaming Mountain. And he planned it out well too, causing distractions with the army, while himself did what he did best, cosplaying, and lead us, the Destined Ones, to go to the Boar King so that he could have a chance to take the relic. And he did, with the help of the talisman he got from the Keeper of the Flaming Mountain. Now, the story of this chapter is clear. The Keeper wanted the Rakshasi, and he saw the arrival of the Destined One as an opportunity. So right before we came, he told Rat Boy about his true identity and the story of his people. He helped and used the Rat Boy to cause the distraction he needed, so that he could have the chance to convince Rakshasi to run away with him. Unfortunately, he got catfished by Bajie. Well deserved, you wife-stealing bastard. Also, you might have worried about this hottie, Ping Ping. Don't worry, she's safe. Rat Boy might not be a good son, but he surely was a good brother. He knocked Ping Ping out and left her somewhere safe before everything happened, so that she could be unharmed in the whole incident. Well, that's a release. Maybe we'll meet her again in the future DLC. Who knows? The real Ping Ping, of course. Anyway, as you progressed in the game, the Pale Axe Stalwart, or as his real name, Jin Dasheng, the buffalo of the Main Mountain brothers, sent here by Erlang to help us. This guy was interesting. Unlike the other brothers, he was too into the role he was playing that he placed his loyalty to the Boar King and was willing to die for his king. Whoa, chill, bro. Anyway, at the end of his life, he finally managed to complete the mission and guided us to learn about the truth here. After knowing about the truth and the final battle, we witnessed the end of the Yaksha king and the end of the whole Yaksha race. The Yakshas were known to be the best fighters, most famous for their unyielding nature, and he surely was worthy of that name. He'd rather die than begging for his life, and that was just depressing. Looking at how desperate his parents were, Mount Lingshan really had a debt to pay. What they did was genocide. There was no way they could justify it. And plus all the injustice the family suffered. This game just gets darker and darker. Alright guys, enough with this depressing chapter. Now I skipped any animation for the sake of the length of the video. Otherwise it would be too long. Now as you can see from this chapter, this game just keeps getting darker and darker. The story of the poor Boar King's family and the poor spider family from the last chapter. They both had similar but miserable fates, and their story just proved that this world was cruel, dark, and merciless, especially for the mortals. And that's why our hero, Sun Wukong, gave up his Buddhahood to fight once again, for his own sake and for the sake of the mortals. In the next episode, I'll talk about just exactly how dark this story was, why Wukong chose to fight again, and all the hidden truth behind it. So guys, please stay tuned. Anyway, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe. It'll mean a lot to me. And also guys, it's the Chinese New Year, and this year is the year of the snake. So everyone, happy Chinese New Year. 诸位，过年好。Again, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. 欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。And don't worry, I'll make them shorter than my penis this time. Playing the game Black Myth Wukong, have you ever wondered what is going on in this game? And what was really going on in the ending? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay the Storyteller, and I'm going to go through the story of the game Black Myth Wukong with you guys. Today we'll be focusing on the final chapter, Chapter 6, Unfinished. As you can notice playing the game, there wasn't really much story in this chapter, and there weren't many bosses either. So you might be wondering, why is this video so long? Well, In the video, we'll talk about the chapter 6 itself, how the game was concluded, as well as going through all the hidden details and the hidden stories that were implied in the previous chapters. So that's why this video was so long. Hopefully it can help you guys understand the story a little bit better. Well, without further ado, let's begin. And here we go. Chapter 6, Unfinished. As the Destined One, we return to Mount Huaguo, our home, only to find this place was full of celestial army, and easily we took out the minions. Honestly, those minions are just as miserable as other sad characters in this game, because they were mortal souls as well. But after being selected by the Celestial Court, they had to serve the court for eternity. Their souls were attached to their armor, and when they take fatal damage, instead of dying, they will just be reborn in the court as long as the armor is complete. And the highest rank that they can promote to was the captain, a very minor position in the court. So it seemed to be a privilege to get off the circle of reincarnation of the mortals. But in fact, they were just selected to enter another circle. Going to battles, getting killed, and being reborn again and again and again and again and again. Yeah, I know, right? The ultimate dreamland of all capitalists. Anyway, the first boss we fought in this chapter was this bird, the Supreme Inspector. According to his portrait, he was the most trusted god of the Jade Emperor, and the Emperor put him in charge of monitoring all the gods in the Celestial Court. The Jade Emperor trusted him so much that the Emperor put the image of his right hand on his neck. The hand we see from the game. That was actually the Jade Emperor's hand, meaning the Inspector's presence was equal to the presence of His Majesty. That was why he was called the Supreme Inspector. So really, he was like the FBI of the Celestial Court, and nobody in the court wanted his attention. In a novel, when Wukong broke out of Lord Lao's furnace and stroked the Celestial Palace, he was the only Celestial God that could hold off Wukong, at least for a short while. The TV show didn't show this part, but that's what happened in the original novel. Also, I've talked about this part in my first video, like who is Sun Wukong and the story of the journey to the west briefly. So if you're interested, please go check it out. It was long, but it was very informational. It can really help you understand the story of the journey and the game a lot better. Anyway, back to the Supreme Inspector. He was trusted by the Emperor because he does everything justly. And also, I'm guessing that the fact that he held off Wukong in the court also played a part in the trust he got from the Emperor. But none of that matters. We still defeated him. And we even strangled this motherfucker in the air. Interesting. I didn't know you could choke a hand, but that's perfectly fine with me. Give me back the fourth sister, you asshole. Then we were saved by the somersault cloud, Sun Wukong's signature flying technique. He learned it from his first master, Patriarch Bodhi. The cloud was a very powerful flying spell. It could go about 54,000 kilometers within a somersault. Yep. Pretty damn fast. That was why it was called the Somersault Cloud. And then we faced this gold-armored Rhino. As the animation and Baji's words suggested, it was transformed from Wukong's armor, the gold sword's armor. And not only it transformed from Wukong's armor, it also inherited Wukong's characteristic, his indomitable spirit. No matter how many times its horn or its protection was shattered, it will always get back up and charge again, exactly like Sun Wukong in the journey. Wukong suffered the most pain and had the most injuries, yet still he led the journey gang to continue their journey to the west. He was never yielding to defeats, and all the defeats and failures could never break him. He was a true fighter with nerve of steel, and the Rhino got this part from him. And then we faced this cloud-treading deer. In the animation, we can see it was transformed from Wukong's lotus silk cloud treaders, his boots. And the deer inherited Wukong's agility, as it was able to manipulate the wind and fly. Also, the deer inherited Wukong's ferocity, as in the journey, Wukong showed no mercy to his enemies. And that's why in phase 2, The deer was covered in blood because it represents Wukong's ferocity. And then this funny giant cricket, the Feng-tail general. It was transformed from Wukong's signature crown, the golden Feng-tail crown. You know, the most memorable part of Sun Wukong. Unlike any other bosses in the game, we didn't actually have to fight this Feng-tail general because it inherited Wukong's cleverness and it knew to dodge and avoid troubles. Just like Wukong in the journey, he never relied on brutal force to take care of problems. He knew to get help when he needed it, as well as transform into yaoguais and stuff, to get information he needed. So Wukong was clever. He hardly go into battles unprepared, and he knew how to make the fights easier for himself. So yeah, he really was a clever monkey. After the cricket, we faced this emerald-armed mantis. It was transformed from Wukong's gauntlet, the Diancui long soaring bracers. Now notice this gauntlet wasn't actually part of Wukong's armor set in the original novel. Game science just added this gauntlet in the game, which makes sense, right? I mean, you gotta have a gauntlet, otherwise it would look too empty. And naturally, the mantis inherited Wukong's characteristic, his ruthlessness, as he went into Zhubaji's stomach and fucking shit up in his stomach. Now, if you watched my previous videos, you will know this was one of Wukong's favorite things to do in the journey, into other people's stomach and just go crazy. The mantis really inherited Wukong's ruthlessness. I mean, just look at it, real badass. Now let's talk about this giant rock guy, the giant Shikandang. Nah, it was actually the giant Shikandang. What a shame. The name looked a lot more fun to say it. So what the hell is this thing? Well, technically you can call this Sun Wukong's placenta. Like I've talked about in my first video, Sun Wukong was a stone monkey born from a rock that had been absorbing the essences of the universe for countless years. And after Wukong was born, the rock continued absorbing essences. And after years, it became this giant stone guy that we fought in the game. But, similar to chapter 2 in the Yellowwing Ridge, someone planted a Buddha head on this rock. And this ugly ass Buddha head stole the essences from the rock. In order to preserve himself, the rock had to absorb the essences from his surroundings. And that's why it was all ruined and scorched around it. The disgusting and greedy Buddha heads, man. Wonder who's behind all this. Such a mystery to solve. Seriously though, Buddhism was everywhere. They were all over the world to take oil. Sorry, I mean the good essences. As for this old monkey, the mandrill chief, well, long story short, she was the first monkey that Sun Wukong met after he was born, and she took him back to introduce him to the monkeys. So really, she treated Wukong as her own son. After Wukong's death, someone told her that finding the 5 Skandhas could bring Wukong back. Even though she was old and weak, she went on looking for them without hesitation. And that's why we can see her in the game, throughout all chapters. I guess she left Mount Huaguo right after Wukong's death. That's why she didn't know us, the destined ones. And that's why she ran away, leaving the Skandhas for us to take. Now, can you imagine what she's gone through? Even us, the destined ones, struggled a lot on the way here. Not to mention the old grandma like her. And after all those efforts, she finally saw a monkey that looked exactly the same as Sun Wukong. That's why her face was like this. She thought that Sun Wukong revived, and that's why she gave us the Skandha and left, leaving laughters of relief. Mothers, how great are they, huh? Be kind to your moms while you can, guys. Alright, let's move on to the next. The Water Curtain Cave. In the novel, Wukong jumped into the waterfall and found a new home for the monkeys. Because inside of the waterfall, there were pre-made furnitures and a sign that said, the Water Curtain Cave. So he led the monkeys into the cave, and the monkeys had a shelter since then. And that's how he earned the monkeys' respect and became the Monkey King. And here in the game, we can still see his throne. Bajie sat on it and said the exact words that Wukong said to him in the journey. Back in the journey, there was one time that Wukong and Tang Monk had a huge fight because of a misunderstanding, and Tang Monk kicked him out. So without a choice, Wukong returned to Mount Huaguo. But as you can imagine, the journey game couldn't go anywhere without Sun Wukong. And very soon, Tang Monk got into deep shit. So naturally, Bajie came to Mount Huaguo to get help. But Wukong was still a bit mad, so he pranked Bajie, treated him as a prisoner, and said the exact words that Bajie said in the game. Now, this chapter was a very interesting one. But again, story for another time. And I'll talk about it in details in my future Journey to the West series. So if you're interested in the the original Journey to the West story. Don't forget to subscribe. In the Water Curtain Cave, we were able to find the 如意金箍棒, Sun Wukong's signature weapon. It weighed about 6.7 tons and could change its size by the owner's will. That's why it was called the 如意金箍棒. You know, in Mandarin, 如意 means at will, and 金箍棒 means the gold-banded staff. Yeah, in Chinese it was pretty self-explanatory. The Jingubang was the finest treasure of the East Sea Long Palace, and Wukong politely borrowed it from the East Sea Long King. Nah, I'm just kidding. He totally robbed him, and not being satisfied with only the weapon, Wukong was like, now that I have a proper weapon, give me a set of armor that matches this weapon, and make it quick too. Otherwise, I'm up, pull up with that stick and hit your motherfucking door. Without a choice, the East Sea Long King summoned his brothers, the Long Kings of other 3 seas. After their discussion, they decided to give Wukong what he wanted for now, but then they were reported to the Celestial Court afterwards. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Wukong got his weapon and his armor. Yeah, he was a total outlaw before the journey. I've talked about Wukong's story in my first video. So again, if you're interested, please go check it out. Now back to the game. After getting the Jingubang, we were ready for the final challenge. The Great Sage's broken shell. But before we go into that, let's talk about why Wukong gave up his Buddhahood and decided to fight once again at the beginning. For the starter, the tightening band on his head, it was absolutely not a fucking crown. It was a tool given by the Buddha to make him obey, as it would cause huge pain upon triggering. The band was supposed to be removed after they completed the journey. But obviously in the game we can see it was still right fucking there. So that was reason number 1 for his freedom. In order to do that, he had to kill himself to truly break free from the band. And in chapter 3, in Kangjin Star's portrait, Yellowbrow showed her something very mind-blowing regarding Sun Wukong because she was a secret admirer of Sun Wukong. She asked, is he, along with all the gods and Buddhas in the celestial realm, all like this? Then the hero image in her mind just collapsed, and that's why she bowed to Yellowbrow. Now, we don't know what exactly Yellowbrow showed her, but we can take a wild guess. The immortality of the Buddhas and gods was based on absorbing the wills. In other words, the souls of the mortals. That's why the wills was a widely used currency in the game. So basically, all the immortals, the Buddhas and the gods, grant their immortality by feeding upon the mortals. And this was the cause of this game. After attaining Buddhahood, Wukong couldn't accept this fact. Not only he didn't want this immortality, he also wanted to put all this to the end. But he was still controlled by Buddhism through the band. So if he wanted to achieve anything, he had to figure out a way to break free from the band, because it looks like the band was deeply attached to his soul. So there was only one way to do this, to kill himself and find someone to inherit his powers and to carry on his will, to finish the unfinished. And that's why this chapter was called The Unfinished. Yes, us, the destined one. I didn't sign up to go against the world, but that's perfectly fine with me. Let's do it. Let's go! Fuck the gods and the Buddhas, man. They can suck my dick. And Wukong's good buddy, Erlang the secret divinity, knew about his plan and he decided to help. As for who is Erlang, I won't talk too much about it now because I've talked about it in the first video. Long story short, he was the best fighter of the Celestial Court and the only one god that could match Wukong's power, without using vessels. Then respect and friendship grew between them as they were very much alike. They were both powerful, kind, and will not bow to the authority. In order to complete Wukong's plan, Erlang summoned the 5 Yaoguai kings that we fought in the game. The Black Bear Guai, the Yellow Wing Guai, the Yellow Brow, the 100-Eye, and the Mighty Bull King, Wukong's sworn brother before the journey. And as we can see from the game, they each had their own scheme, except the Bull King. And by the way, before he got into the final battle, Wukong had Bajie over for dinner, and he got Bajie so drunk that he passed out. He did this to protect Bajie, otherwise Bajie was surely to follow him to go into the fight. But clearly Wukong didn't want that, as Bajie was his brother and he had his own family too. It would be too dangerous for him because it was practically suicide. Now, can you imagine the emotional roller coaster that Bajie was going? He went to his dear big brother monkey for dinner, had fun, got drunk, and the next day he woke up, his big brother was dead and got dismembered. Damn. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Let's continue. Erlang led them to kill Wukong, but in fact, it was Wukong himself who killed himself in order to complete his plan. And the 5 Yaoguai kings each took one of his 6 senses, the relics we saw in the game. But the most important sense was taken by Erlang, Wukong's mind, or in other words, his will. He secretly took it from Wukong and eliminated all the witnesses, even though they were celestial soldiers. And then he went to Maitreya for help, the Buddha of the future, who is known to be merciful and kind. Maitreya offered the help. He gave Erlang a hideout, free from the detection of the celestial court and Buddhism, to keep Wukong's mind secure. Clearly, the kind Maitreya didn't like what the gods and Buddhas were doing as well. That's why he helped. After all we've been through, we were finally at the illusion of Erlang's mountain, the Mei Mountain, to face his final test. Yes, test. In every chapter, we will meet one of the Mei Mountain brothers, sent by Erlang to help us in secret, to guide us to either find the key vessels or to learn about the hidden truth of the place, as well as testing our strength, all by the orders of their senior brother, Erlang, the secret divinity. And at this point, himself will put us to the test, to see if we truly were worthy to carry on Wukong's name. After we pass this test, he'll give us the most important part of Wukong's legacy, Wukong's mind, so that we can truly carry on Wukong's will and become the new Sun Wukong, free from the control of the band. And he even gave us his very own weapon. Looks like he really wanted us to succeed. And by the way, just look how powerful he was, manipulating the weather with a flip of his palm. The power of the sacred divinity. After getting everything we needed, we were finally ready to face the final challenge, to take down and inherit Sun Wukong's final remaining power. And the old monkey that had been guiding us throughout the whole game took us to it. So who exactly is this old monkey, and how was he related to Sun Wukong and to us, the Destined One? There were many theories about his identity. Well, from his conversation, his dialogues and the tones he was speaking in. Personally, I think this is Jin Chanzi, the gold cicada, the second disciple of the Buddha, aka the Tang monk, Sun Wukong's master on a journey to the west, because he just talked like a kindly elder when he was talking about Wukong and Bajie. And plus, he knew Wukong's stories too well, including all the details, as if he experienced them himself. And according to what Yellowbrow said in the game, Jin Chanzi disappeared after they completed the journey. And at the beginning, Jin Chanzi was cast out of Mount Lingshan because he disagreed with the Buddha's doctrine. So it was very likely that after the journey, Jin Chanzi wasn't happy about what Buddhism did, so he left Mount Lingshan again to help us, the Destined Ones. But as a disciple of the Buddhism, he couldn't go directly against Mount Lingshan, so he transformed into an old monkey in Mount Huaguo again and again and again, hoping that one day one destined monkey can succeed and retrieve all Wukong's relics. But his intention was a bit different from Wukong's plan though. He wanted to put the tightening band back on our heads again, but as a protection of course, so that he doesn't have to violate the Buddhism too much, as well as keeping us, the Destined Ones, alive. A subtle approach. That's what a concerned master would do for his beloved disciple. But anyway, that's just my theory. There's no official statement of the old monkey's identity. So have your own thoughts on this, guys. I mean, it could have been the Jade Emperor, who knows? Then, after the epic final animation and fight, and our ancestor Sun Wukong's lessons. I mean, they were actual lessons. You can just see that he had no evil intention towards us. He just wanted to show us how to use the powers properly. But still, man, that hurt. I mean, I've never, ever been this disrespected in a game before. But on the other hand, I really liked the secret interactions. They were just perfectly made and demonstrated Wukong's personality perfectly. After we passed this test, his remaining soul left this world for good. And he was laughing even, finally someone worthy to inherit his powers and carry on his name. Don't worry, Great Sage. I won't let you down. I'll make them all pay. And of course, now we have all his powers and his will. We will never wear that band again. And, like always, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the beautiful, epic final animation of this game.
What does it matter if you become a Buddha? That headband has always been on your head.
Keep those eyes wide open. Watch me rip it off and break free.
Soon, Wukong, when you defied the Celestial Court, I had to seal you beneath the mountains with my immense power. Yet, after enduring punishment, you embraced the dark, uplifted good against evil, and subdued Yao Guais throughout the journey. For your contribution, I now bestow upon you the title of Victorious Fighting Buddha.
He defied the Celestial Court, and the Jade Emperor imposed 3 ordeals. Only when the chicken finishes pecking the rice, the dog laps up the flowers, and the lamp burns through the key, the rain will fall.
One final toast before we crash the Celestial Palace!
Alright, since that was the final animation of the game, there are a few things I want to talk about. First of all, this animation was the story of Journey to the West in reverse order. The first thing was when the Journey game completed their journey and their merits got recognized and they were entitled Buddhahood. And this animation appeared right after we refused to wear the band. So there might be something more to it, you know. Maybe it implied that in the future we will redo the Journey to the West backwards and all the way to the beginning where Wukong stroke the Celestial Palace. So maybe that's what the future DLC is about, you know, us striking the Celestial Palace. Let's fucking go! Game Science, please make it so. Give me a chance to rescue my fourth sister and barbecue this fucking bird. But anyway, that's just my guess, and I sincerely hope so. And the second thing I want to talk about is the image of the Thunderclap Temple. Now pay attention to the bottom of the temple. It was clearly connected to the hell. Another detail that implied there was something dark and shady going on behind the glorious and righteous Buddhism. And maybe we'll learn more about that in the future DLC to come. Hurry up, Game Science, and pay attention to the building right here. The sign said the Game Science building. Aha! I see what you did here, Game Science. Good job. And I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that the other parts of the animation were the stories and the adventures that they had in the original Journey to the West. And in the future, I'll make new videos to break down the animation scene by scene, you know, and then talk about the stories behind them. So stay tuned, guys. With those being covered, that brings us to the end of this chapter. Also, it brings us to the end of the main story of the game Black Myth Wukong. Now, if you watched my previous videos, you'll know that there were still some bosses and characters uncovered. It's not that I don't like them, but they weren't just directly related to the main story, and that's why I skipped them. But in the future, I'll make new short episodes to talk about their own stories. You know, such as Erlang the Secret Divinity, the badass kid, Naja, one of the most popular characters in Chinese mythology, and his father, the Pagoda Heavenly King, the Lawns of Four Waters, the Four Heavenly Kings, etc. So stay tuned, guys, for their personal stories. And don't worry, I'll make them shorter than my penis this time. And also, after the game, I'm making a new series to break down and go through the story of the original Journey to the West, as well as other good stories in Chinese mythology. So if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss them. Anyway, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe. It will mean a lot to me. And also, if there are someone or certain stories that you wish me to talk about, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll go through them in the future. Again, I'm Jay the Storyteller, and thank you for watching this video. 欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。